Has heard a vigorous defense of China's adherence to a zero-COVID policy, plus muscular language from President Xi about Taiwan. But US analysts like Bob McMahon of the Council on Foreign Relations say the meeting is equally about cementing the Communist Party's grip on power in China.
It's expected that Xi will populate the Standing Committee of the Politburo with his own choices, really cementing his support and the people who are aligned with him and all sorts of things. Again, by most accounts and expectations, you'll see references to Xi Jinping thought, which is echoing what we had seen under the Mao Zedong era with Mao thought, which is incorporated into the Constitution, making it harder to sort of counter Xi's policies going forward. And really putting into place or furthering by all expectations this move towards the tightening of the rule of the party and also the assertiveness, if not aggressiveness, of China's actions internationally.
The Congress is witnessing a departure from rules set out by former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, who believed that no leader should be granted more than 2 terms in office. There is no indication how many more years at the helm Xi Jinping is planning. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
From the admission of Ant Colony 000082567 KLN 00067X into the Union in 1897, to the day in 1817 when embarrassed construction workers realized they put the Erie Canal in the wrong place. The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On August 5th, 1962, Nelson Mandela was jailed until 1990, becoming fully rehabilitated through the South African penal system. And thanks to the services provided to him while imprisoned, emerged from jail a successful politician and internationally revered symbol of peace. Mandela's record of overcoming hardships and moving South Africa beyond its formidable racial struggles is a lasting testament to South Africa's correctional facilities and prove that the penal system's small cells, demeaning work duties, and minimal rations are exactly the tools needed for a prisoner to truly become a reformed citizen.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. You can join us, bring up whatever you want to talk about. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And, of course, the phones are open for you. You can bring up anything that you want. Coming up, apparently somebody has predicted a 100% chance of recession within the next 12 months. Aria's got that story for us.
That's as far as predictions go, that's a pretty mild prediction, right? Like, I would just about predict one by the end of the year.
Well, I mean, given that the White House has redefined what the word recession meant, if you recall, it was like within the last couple months, there was big headlines about how the White House was denying that a recession is the two declining quarters of GDP, I think was the old definition. And in fact, if you look it up, you can still see that the UK still has that definition of it, apparently. And that's already happened this year. So by that definition, which has like been the long-running accepted definition of what is a recession, we're already there.
Well, that's what governments do, right? When things get bad and they don't like it, they just change definitions to convince people that things aren't really as bad as they actually are.
Exactly. Just move the goalposts.
Yeah, right? They did the same thing with how they measure inflation and the increase in prices as a result of inflation. Of course, they redefined the entire formula. So we're going to measure this differently now. And that, it just hides and obfuscates what they're actually doing.
Kind of like the court system, like they just give new words to normal things so that way it sounds like they're talking about something else.
Mm-hmm. Like person when they're actually talking about a corporation. that kind of thing.
I haven't heard that.
You've never heard that a person is defined legally as a corporation in addition to a flesh and
like a human being or
being?
A corporation?
I don't know. Maybe it sounds
surprised.
like some of these stuff that the quote sovereign citizens talk about.
Well, the sovereign citizens are absolutely right about that. That's the crazy world of legal land. Is words don't necessarily mean what you think they mean. Sometimes they mean things that are completely bizarre, like person meaning a corporation.
Yeah, so. I seem to recall some president or some Republican or someone catching heat for saying that corporations are people too or something like that.
Yes, there's been a long controversy about this, like sort of in mainstream media, and not media, but like mainstream society or whatever. And it's a long settled legal question: is corporations are persons according to legal land?
These fictitious entities that don't actually exist.
Correct.
Well,
yeah.
that's why.
Right.
That's why they can say like it's you versus the United States, because the United States is a corporation, and that means it's a person.
It's a quote-unquote person.
Well, humans have a long history of doing this sort of thing, of imagining these groups, which are just imaginary concepts. I think Max Stirner, who referred to them as spooks. These illusionary, imaginary things that humans only believe exist, like governments, or any organization or any group, when in reality, only the individual item within that group exists.
If you want to join the show, you can here. The number is 603-283-6160. So since we're going to talk about money, and we'll get into the recession story here in a moment, here's a spooky story from NPR. Halloween candy is up 13% this year, as the prices of everything have been going up due to inflation. Inflation, of course, is the increase in the money supply. That is why prices go up. And according to NPR, it is for those who prefer treat over trick will be paying 13.1% more than last year, according to the most recent inflation report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's the largest yearly jump in candy prices that the CPI has ever recorded. Previously, for comparison, it took 9 years, from 1997 to 2006, for candy prices to rise 13%. And now it took just 1 year.
I'm not at all surprised by this. I'm just curious how most people hear this and they don't immediately understand that 13-ish% is the actual inflation number that we're dealing with, and not the
8.1%.
That the government says. It's pretty obvious that if the actual price has increased by 13+%, then that's the actual inflation value, even though that's not even what inflation is. But if we accept that increase in prices is the inflation, it's still actually 13%.
You could say it's at least 13%, because it could be higher. Right? You have to remember the different things are priced differently, right? So energy is going up at a higher clip, for instance, than food is. And we may see changes in all of these categories over time. I was talking with somebody yesterday, I think it was, who was saying that farmers in the United States, because they can't get the same amount of pesticides and fertilizers that they were able to get previously, that they've had to turn to using manure instead of fertilizer to grow their food, and there's not as much of that available. So therefore, there's not as many crops that are being manufactured in the United States. Therefore, prices on food are going to go up, and some of those things haven't hit yet. So those prices haven't yet increased in some of the categories of food because they're harvesting now, right? So that's
so we'll see those next year or the year after.
Yeah, well, it'll be next year, right? Because food only keeps for so long. But I was also giving him an example of something that I saw at the Mouseprint website, which is that consumer news site that looks at the prices of looks at the sizes of bottles and packaging and things, and they've been the best people at categorize or like sort of cataloging the different shrinkflations that have been happening.
What was the website called?
Mouseprint.org. Okay. You look at the fine print, kind of. That's what their site's about. And they'd reported on the Florida's Natural brand orange juice that now, to their credit, it's on the front of the package. They didn't throw it on the back side in small print, but it is on the front of the package, that now they're getting some amount of their orange juice from Mexico because they didn't have the crops. Yeah, it's Florida's Natural or whatever. That's the brand. There's still some orange juice from Florida in there.
Yeah.
But it might be 50-50 at this point. We don't know. And that's because the crops in Florida, they didn't have as many as they
Isn't Brazilian orange juice supposed to be better anyway? Like taste better?
I don't know. Never heard that. But another thing I saw this week was I had to go to Nashua, and Ian asked if I would bring back Chick-fil-A. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't mind that as far as fast food because they cook their food in peanut oil. I said that to Ian before I left. And when I got there, I actually ordered first. And then I was like, oh, yeah, let me make sure. And I looked at the menu, and it says we cook our chicken in peanut oil. We cook our fries in canola oil. And I was like, what the? I've always thought, oh, Chick-fil-A is not as bad because it's in peanut oil. So I can't find the exact year they stopped doing it. But on Chick-fil-A's website, I just found confirmation that they used to cook the waffle fries in peanut oil too, and now they do canola oil. And it's cheaper. That's why people do that. So
that's a shame.
But if they already have the peanut oil, what's the...
Probably just the amounts they use go down. Like, I worked at a nice...
If it's cheaper to use canola oil, then they would switch that out, right?
I guess. It just seems like more work than is necessary. If you're already using peanut oil for the chicken, just use peanut oil for the fries, right?
They probably have like a fryer and a chicken fryer.
Do they fry the chicken on the site?
Or
is it
sure
pre-fried? Okay.
But I worked at a nice Mediterranean restaurant in San Antonio. Not like super fancy, but pretty nice. It's definitely not like fast food. And you know how you get oil on the table? This was even back in beginning of 2020 or 2019.
Yeah, if you dip the bread in there with the spices.
Yeah, with the bread and the nice spices in the oil. We always mixed it half and half canola oil, olive oil, and they would always be like, don't tell anyone that. Like, just say it's olive oil. But it's or like if they ask, just be like, oh, it's olive oil, because it's not a lie. Just also canola oil.
How much money could they possibly save with this nonsense? It's got to be fractions of a penny on the dollar.
But you go through so much of that oil. Like, we refilled a big old tub of it like twice a day at least.
Yeah, but you would think at a fancy restaurant, you wouldn't want to cut back like that.
It's like you can't even tell. That's the thing. It tastes like olive oil.
Yeah, well, that's why they're doing it, because they think they're going to get away with it, but...
Well, they probably do, but it seems like it would be a silly cost-saving measure.
The owners were terrible. I'll just say that.
Must have been. The number here is 603-283-6160. So candy up over 13%. We'll get into a little bit more about the related price increases. Sugar, according to the story, up over 17%. So, yeah, this is not going to get better anytime soon. And you can share your thoughts as well. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't worry about things you can't control. Isn't that what they always say? But it's about impossible to avoid worrying about what's going on these days. The government has used the war on guns, the war on drugs, and the war on terrorism to tear our Bill of Rights to shreds. But you can fight back. The 10th Amendment Center has proven it, racking up major victories. For example, when the U.S. government claimed authority in the NDAA to have the military kidnap and detain Americans without trial, the nullifiers got a law passed in California, declaring the state's refusal to ever participate in any such thing. Their latest project is offnow.org, nullifying the National Security Agency. They've already gotten model legislation introduced in California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas, meant to limit the power of the NSA to spy on Americans in those states. We'd be fools to wait around for the U.S. Congress or courts to roll back Big Brother. Our best chance is nullification and interposition on the state level. Go to offnow.org, print out that model legislation, and get to work nullifying the NSA. The hero Edward Snowden has risked everything to give us this chance. Let's take it. Offnow.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We were talking about inflating prices, which, of course, is a symptom of actual inflation, and that is the increase in the money supply. Candy prices up over 13% compared to last year. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
And you can join us, of course, over at freetalklive.com. You can enjoy the features that we have there. Once again, that is freetalklive.com. Also, want to say thanks to bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com has a variety of features, including some introductory videos that you can watch. Just click Get Started at the top of the page over at bitcoin.com, and that'll take you over to those videos. If you're really pressed for time, just watch the first one. I think it'll take you just 3 minutes or so, and you'll get down some of the new ideas, some basic concepts around cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Of course, you can dig in deeper. They've got more videos and information there. They've got a great news site at news.bitcoin.com. And you can even buy your first coins, crypto coins there. You can buy, don't forget, you don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction. You can buy 1% or less if you want of a Bitcoin. So don't be dissuaded by the high price tag. Because remember, right now, one Bitcoin is like 19,000 and some, maybe 19,500, somewhere in that range today. But again, if you...
It's gained a lot over the last 2 years.
It has. It's still higher than it was a few years ago, that's for sure, even though it's quote-unquote down from where it was just 1 year ago, where it hit like 68,000. Could it get that high again? It certainly could. Will the dollar ever go up in value? No, it won't. So, you decide what to do, but you should learn the basics first. Just go to bitcoin.com and click Get Started. We go to your phone calls and thoughts here. We've got Gwyneth. She's on the line calling from Victoria, Australia. Go ahead, Gwyneth.
Hello there. How are you today?
Hey, great. You sound, by the way, really good. I know you've called before, and sometimes it's been hard to hear you, but you sound really good tonight. Go ahead.
Oh, that's good. I bought a new cell phone a little while ago.
That might have done it.
So that's probably it. But what I was wanting to talk about today was our quote-unquote dear leader here in Victoria, Daniel Andrews. Oh, boy, what a piece of work he is. We've got massive floods here in Victoria at the moment because, the other week we had over 100 millimetres of rainfall in a single day. So, and that's like just caused, some areas there's the rivers are running at 90 meters, over 90 meters. So that's the Murray River at Echuca is, I think it's running at about 96 meters or something like that. That's pretty high, if you think. And normally it might run at like 10 or 20 meters. It's a big river.
Yeah, that's an enormous difference. I mean, he's saying that it's running 90 meters. It doesn't mean much unless we know what the river normally is at.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So there's a lot of flooding, you're saying?
I've seen, there's a lot of flooding. But Daniel Andrews, his response was just jaw-dropping the other day. He had a press conference, and it was broadcast on the ABC News Australia. And he said that they were opening up do you remember the COVID concentration camps?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was broadcast all over in Victoria. Well, Daniel Andrews has said on a public press conference here in Victoria that he would be opening up the COVID, he calls them quarantine centres, but we all know what they are, for people who can't live in their homes, who have had to evacuate to move into the COVID quarantine concentration camps.
You're saying for the people who cannot live in a flooded home. You're saying people who've had flooded homes will be allowed to live there.
Right. Would they be allowed to leave at least this time?
I mean, that doesn't sound half bad. I mean, it sounds like an option for people.
These places, the last time they were open, they had police guards on them. And they, who's to say that he's not just going to say, well, we're going to put guards on the door again? He hasn't said
this guy's a scumbag. There's no doubt about it. I just pulled up. I thought the name's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just pulled up the name. The name sounded familiar, and I just wanted to see what he looked like. And I definitely remember seeing video of him being an absolute tyrant during the COVID.
Was he the one that was saying like, "Oh, you can't walk so far on the parchment paper, or not parchment, but
I don't recall if he was that one or not. There were a bunch of really baddies down there.
Him.
Okay,
I remember something like that.
That's him. He was the same one who authorised our local goon squad, the Victoria Police, who have a logo which is literally a Baphomet satanic star. Okay, I think I pointed that out last time.
Yeah, I think we went and we looked that one up. Yeah, that was interesting.
They had Victoria police officers literally slamming people's heads into the pavement at the main railway station for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I think that guy actually died.
What is the current COVID status there? So it sounds like they've closed the COVID camps. Are people still, being forced to do things like mask, or what's the current legal situation there with COVID?
Well, what's happening is if you're vaccinated, life is normal. If you're not vaccinated, you can't go to a bunch of places.
Really?
Are people actually checking for vaccinations, though, or is it just sort of like an honor system thing?
At the entry places to these places, then, like, for instance, public libraries, you cannot go to a public library. And also a bunch
But wait,
of
what are
other
they doing
places.
at the entrance? Are they scanning a code or something?
Checking your cell phone for your COVID app.
Okay.
And
now, I mean,
they're still
losing
doing that
libraries
in
not really a big deal
and you
for.
can't work.
You can't work.
You cannot work at any regular job unless you've got a vaccination.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty extreme.
Even from home.
Victoria. Even from home.
Wow.
If you have an employer doing a regular job where you're paid a wage, you can't do that unless you're vaccinated.
What about contractors?
People have got various ways around that, which, use your imagination to figure it out. But
is being a contractor a way around that? Meaning if you're not an employee but you work under a contract, is that a way to get around it?
Contractors are required to be vaccinated.
How are they getting around it then?
Subcontractors. Or I'm not prepared to say on air.
I would speculate that a lot of them are faking it. I know the one that they rolled out in New York or New Jersey or whatever it was, you could trick it with like a menu from a restaurant or whatever, and it would say...
The scanner, the code scanner?
Yeah, well, it asks you to take a picture of your vaccine passport or your vaccine card or whatever, and then it would use artificial intelligence or something like it to say, yes, this is a valid vaccine card or whatever, and it would say, yes, this person's good.
It's not very intelligent.
It's like when I did
government.
People are just really, really creative. They're using a number of methods, but I'm not going to talk about any of them.
Well, I wish that you would call another night and tell us about that. Gwyneth, thank you for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for the update from Down Under. The number here, 603-283-6160. It sounds like it's still pretty bad down there if everybody has to be vaccinated in order to work, which, thank goodness, that is not a requirement here, at least in most places that I'm aware of in the United States. There's more coming up, and you can join the show. This is Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Ukraine says at least 8 people have died after a number of areas were hit by what's claimed to be Iranian-made kamikaze drones. Tehran's denied supplying drones to the Russian military. The Ukrainian government says hundreds of towns have lost power after critical infrastructure was hit. This comes as Russia has increased its missile attacks on Ukraine over recent days. NATO staging what it says is a routine nuclear exercise in the skies over Western Europe. This comes as tensions between the West and Russia continue to rise over Moscow's nuclear threats in Ukraine. Alex Cartier reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Fighter jets, long-range bombers and surveillance aircraft from more than a dozen NATO allies have taken to the sky for the alliance's annual nuclear drill. The exercise is designed to make sure NATO's nuclear deterrent capabilities are up to date. Despite NATO accusing the Kremlin of nuclear saber-rattling in the last few weeks, officials insist this drill is routine and was scheduled before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The drill will involve 60 aircraft from 14 different countries over 2 weeks, with NATO adding that no live weapons will be used.
The UK's new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt has announced he will reverse most of the planned tax cuts set out by his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. Mr Hunt was appointed to the post on Friday after Mr Kwarteng was asked to stand down by the Prime Minister Liz Truss. But pressure is continuing to build for the Prime Minister. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
In a televised statement, Mr Hunt said it was an essential responsibility to make decisions necessary for long-term stability, saying that while cuts to stamp duty paid on home purchases would still go ahead, plans to reduce tax paid on basic rates of income from 20% to 19% would not. It's a big shake-up of the vision that the Prime Minister had until recently been selling. The markets appear to be responding to the new plan already, though, with the value of the pound rising.
Kanye West is getting into the media business. The rapper struck a deal to buy Parler, a conservative social media platform that emerged during the Trump presidency. The move comes after West was suspended from several other sites over anti-Semitic posts. Tony Waterman has more.
West said in a statement, quote, "We have to make sure we have the right to freely express ourselves." West has been suspended from Instagram and Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks, including one post in which he said he would go, quote, "DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Parler launched in 2018, but was blacklisted from Google and Amazon over its role in the January 6th attacks. The company says it expects to finalize the deal by the end of the year.
And hearing aids will now be allowed to be sold over the counter in the United States as a 5-year-old law finally takes effect. The hope is that the move will dramatically lower prices for devices that can cost thousands of dollars. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Yeah, it's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. You can join us, of course, and bring up anything you want. The number is 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by great listeners here. The AMPS program will allow you to get behind what we do. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us get the word out about freedom to more great radio stations around the country and bring new internet listeners on board. And you get some cool perks like access to the AMP Only podcast. That AMP Only podcast has the full radio show with no recorded commercials included, so it is a nice way to get all that content, and you can easily include that in any of your favorite podcast clients using the link that they give you over at Patreon when you sign up at amps.freetalklive.com. That takes you right over to our Patreon. That's amps.freetalklive.com. So we were talking about inflation and how it is hitting the prices of candy as people prepare to go into the Halloween season. Decorations are starting to go up, and good luck finding a bag of candy for the kids for less than $10 these days. I mean, I'm talking about like the big bags, right, with like a bunch of pieces in them. They are expensive.
I bought one a few weeks ago for work. It was like $25, and it was
wow.
I mean, it was a fairly large bag, but it seemed like it was probably more than it should have cost.
Ours is going to be at least close to expired because we got it on sale after Halloween last year at Aldi. Is really cheap.
Candy almost never expires, though. That's the thing.
It's just like sugar.
Yeah, it's pretty shelf stable for a very long time, which is why I always recommend buying your Halloween candy after Halloween. Just make sure you go in the next day. This is like, frugal person's tip here.
I mean, it's not even that frugal, right? I mean, most people are going to eat their Halloween candy after Halloween, and that's when it's also cheapest.
Right, no, but I mean to give out to the kids. So I go into Walmart or whatever the next day. If I remember, if not, then oh well, whatever. But if I remember to go in, there's usually some left at that point, and they've usually got it marked down by 50%.
Yep.
So,
even the giant bags.
Yeah, even the big bags. So you just snatch up a couple big bags of it, stow it away until next year, and no one cares. No one knows.
I've been really good. There's been that giant bag of like 3 Musketeers in our house for a whole year, and I think I've only eaten like 2 of them.
Nice job. So according to the story here at npr.org, candy prices are up 13.1% compared to last year. And as a comparison, it took a decade or 9 years from 1997 to 2006 for candy prices to rise 13% previously. So now it did it in 1 year. The price of candy, according to this story, has risen 2% since just August.
Well, what about the 4th of July dinner?
What about it?
Remember when Biden said it went down 30 cents?
I think he said that in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not true this year.
Probably not true at all, yeah.
They didn't make that claim this year. So, again, the price has risen just 2% since August, so that's really pretty high for just 1 month. Sweets of all kinds are costlier than last year, driven by major increases in the price of sugar and flour. Sugar is up over 17% since last September. Supply chain disruptions and a poor beet sugar production year have all helped contribute. Flour prices have risen even more at 24%.
What was this, flour?
Flour.
Good Lord.
And remember, this cost goes into making other things, so therefore the cost of things that are made with flour are going to go up as well, in addition to shipping costs, which are higher due to gas prices being higher, and all this stuff just keeps layering on top of one another to make things worse.
I heard something else disturbing about flour this week. Apparently, you're almost certainly eating bugs if you're eating flour. Bugs just get in there.
Oh, you mean like an accidental thing, not that they're making bug flour or cricket flour or whatever.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as a general rule, I just assume that all American food has some amount of bugs in it. I mean, some trace amount of bugs.
Probably true. Yeah.
It's like cigarettes, too. Like, they have trace amounts of bugs in them. Ran into the tobacco thing.
Well, that figures. I mean, you're grinding up an S ton of plants, so of course there's going to be some beetles and whatever else.
Apparently, a really bad audit, like that they would, lots of anti-smoking campaigns would bring up is like that they went in there and they found like crushed up rats too, like rats that had gotten in. But I heard that when I was like in elementary school, so.
So to help drive up the cost of cakes, cupcakes, and cookies by 16% since just last September, frozen and refrigerated baked goods are up more than 20%. Americans collectively are expected to spend about $3.1 billion on candy this season, according to the National Retail Federation, the industry trade group.
That is so much freaking candy. What is that per person? That's like $8 per person, something along those lines.
A $15 bag of assorted Halloween-sized candies on that $15 bag, a 13% increase means about $2. Costumes also might be more expensive than usual. While the CPI report doesn't specifically track costumes, the price of clothing has also increased 5.5% since last year, and those crafty enough to make handmade costumes will feel the pinch even more. Sewing machines, fabric, and supplies are up 11% since last September. You cannot escape this. There is no escape from inflation except to get your value out of the U.S. dollar and out of the government fiat central bank currencies. That's the only way out of this.
Right, because then whatever it is that you're holding instead of the USD is also increasing in value by roughly the same amount.
Well, we can't say that for sure, right? Because if you
That's
actually
the theory, though.
I think maybe over time that may prove to be true. Certainly it has proven to be true with precious metals over time.
At least it's usually not lowering as fast as the dollar.
That's generally true as well.
So you're saving yourself from that.
Asterisk, small print here, day to day, that's not always the case, right? So like right now, gold per ounce is down lower than it's been in my recollection as far as the last year or two. Gold has peaked as high as $2,000 per ounce, but it is currently at $1,650 per ounce.
Wow, that is significantly lower than I thought. Last I heard it was like $1,800 or $1,900. Of course, I don't follow the price of gold that closely.
Yeah, but it's like in 10 years, it'll probably be like in some little dip that never really mattered. Like if you bought your gold 10 years ago, it's a big difference.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
an important thing to keep in mind, Bonnie, is to zoom out, because 20 years ago, gold was $300 an ounce.
Whoa.
So, I mean, it's definitely up compared to a long time ago. But if you only look at the last few months or the last year, it may not really show you the sort of the full picture. And that's true with cryptocurrency as well. It's quote unquote down from last year's peak of 68,000 to around 19,500. But if you zoom out 5 years, you'll see it's up quite a bit compared to just a few years ago. So you always want to zoom out on these long-term investments, these other alternatives that you can use to get yourself out of the government money system. But again, day to day, there's never any guarantees, period. Because remember, they can manipulate the price of gold to some extent by essentially selling gold that doesn't exist. And we're starting to see companies that could be doing this with cryptocurrency as well. Any company that sells you quote-unquote Bitcoin but doesn't allow you to withdraw the Bitcoin from the system to send to your own wallet.
Apparently banks are doing that.
Yeah, we just heard about it from some reporters in town that say that European banks are starting to offer crypto, so quote-unquote Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but they won't allow you to withdraw them.
It's, investment only.
Yeah, so that means you need to be really, really careful, because if you cannot have the coins yourself, same thing's true with gold and silver. If you don't have physical possession of those things, there's no guarantee you actually own them. And so that's one of the ways they can artificially decrease the value of gold by essentially selling more than actually exists, and therefore driving the price down or keeping it from rising at the rate that it otherwise should.
Right, because if not everyone is cashing in those gold certificates or whatever, then they don't actually need to have the physical gold.
Correct. So
all the more reason not to get into that silly gold certificates. Get the actual gold.
I agree, but the point being that it keeps the price of gold down generally. So some would argue that gold should be $3,000 to $5,000 an ounce right now if it actually the supply and the demand weren't being manipulated, or the supply weren't being manipulated. Obviously, they can't really manipulate demand. But there's more coming up here. You can join us. That's why I say beware, there's no guarantees on these alternatives, but at the very least, they can't print gold and they can't print crypto. They can't print out Bitcoin from the Federal Reserve. More coming up.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything you want to talk about here. We've been talking about money because, well, that's, for a lot of people, the number one issue right now. And it should be, because it's a huge concern. You know, those who are having a tough time make ends meet, well, it's even tougher now. And some people who were able to make ends meet before, are now having a tough time making ends meet because prices are going up on absolutely everything. With you tonight in the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Just go to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have there for you. We're also big fans of alternative currencies, which is what we were just talking about a moment ago. The only way to get out of inflation, to get out from the punishing increases of all of the prices. We were just going over some of the different product categories, like candy. For Halloween candies, up 13% just compared to last year. Sugar up 17%. All kinds of products that go into the products that you buy, all going up in price. And, of course, as the gas price goes up, everything else is going up as a result of that, because you have to truck the things from point A. There's just no end to it, except if you do something to protect the wealth that you have created. Now, there are different ways to do this. Some people like things like real estate or business investments, and I'm not going to say there's necessarily anything wrong with various different types of investments. Of course, the price of real estate right now is apparently taking a dive, according to a story over at nypost.com. Home asking prices are tumbling at a record pace as people are no longer buying at the rate that they were just 1 year ago, and that's because the government keeps increasing the interest rates. And so because the interest rates are going up, home mortgage rates are going up, and now fewer buyers are interested in buying houses as a result of that. And so therefore the sellers are having to slash their prices in order to keep buyers interested. So, there's all kinds of ramifications
Is
here.
that all over the U.S.?
I haven't gotten all those details yet, but if it's not affecting an area near you, you can better believe it is affecting some areas for sure. So what can you do? Well, we did talk about how gold and silver are an option, and bullionmax.com can help you with that. If you go to bullionmax.com/FTL, it'll actually take you to their gold back page where you can buy gold that you can actually use. Because it's cool to buy gold ounces and silver ounces and stick them in a safe and then, hope that they're going to do something for you in however many years. I guess the idea there is it would protect, in theory, would protect your wealth from inflation.
I don't know about gold backs for that purpose.
That's
though.
what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with buying the gold and the silver ounces. It's just they don't do much besides protect your wealth.
Right.
You can just sit them in a safe and hope that they go up in value over time.
Don't put them in a safe. That's the first place robbers always look.
Okay, then bury them underground or wherever it is. It's you got to be careful with that too, though. You got to remember where you buried them, make sure you sealed them properly, and there's a whole thing. So do something to keep them out of the robbers' hands, including the government robbers as well. Bullionmax.com, they got all those things. Ounces, half ounces. They've got a whole selection of different options, bars. You name it, silver, gold. Bullionmax.com has all that stuff. But if you want gold, you can actually spend. Then you got to go with the gold back. There's just no other option for it. They're amazing, beautiful, interchangeable gold money that you can carry in your wallet made of real gold. Bonnie and I were able to spend them at a hippie convention that we went to over the weekend.
The Mind, Body, and Spirit. Oh, man, I don't know now. The Mind, Body, and Spirit.
Expo?
Maybe Expo?
Yeah. But yeah, we spent them there. In fact, it would have been fun to have set up a table and to actually vend them, but we didn't find out about it until the day before.
Yeah, it's cool that in New Hampshire you can find hippies at a hippie convention that will understand gold and think it's awesome, and crypto. I had a crypto shirt on that I got complimented by the same hippies. And also they made a comment about how the war in Ukraine is BS and money laundering. I was like, wow, actual anti-war hippies.
Yeah.
We have the old school hippies in Vermont and New Hampshire, don't we?
These two were from Vermont.
Yep, just right over the border. Oh, yeah.
But they live near here.
They're not the California hippies. They're the actual old school anti-war, probably baked their brains with unhealthy amounts of LSD back in the 60s and 70s. And, but, they didn't make them stupid or anything. It just made them eccentric.
Yeah, it was interesting. So they like the goldbacks. They were very excited about it, more than happy to accept it. And you can try this as well. Get your goldbacks at bullionmax.com/FTL. And, of course, they got all the ounces and silver and gold products that you can want if that's what you're into. And I recommend checking their inventory out. bullionmax.com/FTL. So we were talking about the rise in prices on food products. Also, home prices are dropping. Coming up, we're going to get into recession predicted at 100%, basically a guarantee within the next year, according to somebody Aria is going to tell us about here in a moment. But according to nypost.com, let's see here. This is real estate report from a firm called Redfin shows home sellers are slashing their asking prices at a record clip as surging mortgage rates are driving a downturn in the U.S. housing market. About 7.9% of home listings reported price drops during the 4-week period ending October 9th.
I saw that. Man, our friend Mark Edge lucked out selling his house.
Yeah,
just in time.
Like weeks just in time.
Well, I think he did have to take a break on his, didn't he? Did he get asking price on that one? I feel like he had to drop a little on his asking price.
I think he did, but
That's pretty normal, though.
there
so,
was a
like,
good reason for doing it, if I recall correctly.
I think it was to get the sale done quickly or something like that. But yeah, he was like right on the precipice of, okay, it's time to get moving on this. That figure marked a record high and a significant uptick compared to the same period last year when only 4% of listings reported price cuts. Prospective homebuyers and sellers barely had time to get used to 5.5% mortgage rates over the summer before they rose to nearly 7% this month. The second sharp rate increase this year, together with nerves about inflation and the direction of the economy, is dragging home sale activity down further than it was over the summer and pushing homebuyer sentiment down near its all-time low.
Well, I can only imagine.
Wow.
I mean, they're already going broke. They're already living paycheck to paycheck, more than half of them. On top of that, the prices of electricity is going up, the prices of heating oil is going up, gasoline, food, all of these things are going up.
Right.
So when something goes wrong with your house, not to mention the lumber shortage that wouldn't have to be, if some kid, puts a hole in the wall or whatever, well, that'd probably be drywall. But still, the cost of all of these materials and all of these things is just constantly going up. Owning a home is expensive.
Yep, that's right. Well, renting's not getting cheaper either, right? Like
it's not.
Some rentals have been going up 30 to 40% year to year.
I mean, it's pretty clear from a outside viewpoint, and I'm on the inside, but it's inescapably clear that the system, the economic model playing out in the United States right now is on the verge of collapsing. It's collapsing as we speak.
It's a slow motion collapse, but it is.
And with all this stuff going on, people still just think that it's their renters being rude, that their rent is going up.
Well,
I saw a girl that I know from high school complaining about like the renters in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what the communist ideology that they've been exposed to for the last several decades has convinced them of. It's not any of these things. Being a homeowner is not a legitimate job or anything like that. I mean, it's just
the evil landlord.
Yeah, the landlords are just being greedy. That's all.
No, the landlord's got rent. They've got a mortgage to pay, and they've got property taxes to pay, and property taxes aren't going down. So
rent should be illegal. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, that's what the commies believe for sure. Buying activity in the once red-hot U.S. housing market has considerably slowed as higher mortgage rates make it difficult to afford homes. A 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 6.92% last week, which is more than double the rate for the same week 1 year earlier. So if you had bought a home a year ago, you would have gotten a better mortgage rate. Of course, that was the crazy rush of people buying houses, so the negative side would be that you paid a lot more than maybe you otherwise should have, and so the good side of the rates going up now is prices are going to come down. So I don't know, which way would you rather have it, a $150,000 home at a 7% rate or a $300,000 home at a 3.5% rate? Honestly, I don't know which one is a worse situation offhand.
It's a lot of numbers. It's way too many for me to even attempt to process off the top of my head. But Bonnie, you just made me remember that before I moved to New Hampshire, I argued with other libertarians online, because that's what libertarians outside of New Hampshire do. They argue with one another online. And I had totally forgotten about the existence of the Libertarian Socialists and the Libertarian Socialist Caucus and their little catchphrase, rent is theft.
Wow.
I had completely forgotten about the existence of these people. I mean, that's because they're ineffective as activists, obviously, and that they're not worth remembering. But there's this whole sect of libertarians who hashtag rent is theft.
The anti-work people, too. Aren't they also against
Libertarian Socialist is a new name to me. I've heard of anarcho-socialist.
They're anarcho-communists.
Yeah.
But they call themselves libertarian socialists. I'm fine with that.
It sounds nicer.
If they're actual anarcho-communists and they don't want to involve a state, sure, whatever.
If you want to join the show here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. On the other hand, if you do get a home loan and you get a 30-year home loan, if you have no penalty to paying it off early, if they go into hyperinflation, $300,000 might not even buy a loaf of bread eventually, and so you could just pay off your home loan in, one lump sum. That's worst case scenario, but more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Ukraine says at least 8 people have died after a number of areas were hit by what's claimed to be Iranian-made kamikaze drones. Tehran's denied supplying drones to the Russian military. The Ukrainian government says hundreds of towns have lost power after critical infrastructure was hit. This comes as Russia has increased its missile attacks on Ukraine over recent days. NATO staging what it says is a routine nuclear exercise in the skies over Western Europe. This comes as tensions between the West and Russia continue to rise over Moscow's nuclear threats in Ukraine. Alex Cartier reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Fighter jets, long-range bombers and surveillance aircraft from more than a dozen NATO allies have taken to the sky for the alliance's annual nuclear drill. The exercise is designed to make sure NATO's nuclear deterrent capabilities are up to date. Despite NATO accusing the Kremlin of nuclear saber-rattling in the last few weeks, officials insist this drill is routine and was scheduled before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The drill will involve 60 aircraft from 14 different countries over 2 weeks, with NATO adding that no live weapons will be used.
The UK's new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt announced he will reverse most of the planned tax cuts set out by his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. Mr Hunt was appointed to the post on Friday after Mr Kwarteng was asked to stand down by the Prime Minister Liz Truss. But pressure is continuing to build for the Prime Minister. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
In a televised statement, Mr Hunt said it was an essential responsibility to make decisions necessary for long-term stability, saying that while cuts to stamp duty paid on home purchases would still go ahead, plans to reduce tax paid on basic rates of income from 20% to 19% would not. It's a big shake-up of the vision that the Prime Minister had until recently been selling. The markets appear to be responding to the new plan already, though, with the value of the pound rising.
Kanye West is getting into the media business. The rapper struck a deal to buy Parler, a conservative social media platform that emerged during the Trump presidency. The move comes after West was suspended from several other sites over anti-Semitic posts. Tony Waterman has more.
West said in a statement, quote, "We have to make sure we have the right to freely express ourselves." West has been suspended from Instagram and Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks, including one post in which he said he would go, quote, "DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Parler launched in 2018 but was blacklisted from Google and Amazon over its role in the January 6 attacks. The company says it expects to finalize the deal by the end of the year.
And hearing aids will now be allowed to be sold over the counter in the United States as a 5-year-old law finally takes effect. The hope is that the move will dramatically lower prices for devices that can cost thousands of dollars. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the historic 20th Communist Party Congress underway in Beijing. It is a foregone conclusion that the delegates will vote to grant Xi Jinping an unprecedented third term in the presidency, and already the Congress has heard a vigorous defence of China's adherence to a zero-COVID policy, plus muscular language from President Xi about Taiwan. But US analysts like Bob McMahon of the Council on Foreign Relations say the meeting is equally about cementing the Communist Party's grip on power in China.
It's expected that Xi will populate the Standing Committee of the Politburo with his own choices, really cementing his support and the people who are aligned with him and all sorts of things. Again, by most accounts and expectations, you'll see references to Xi Jinping thought, which is echoing what we had seen under the Mao Zedong era with Mao thought, which is incorporated into the Constitution, making it harder to sort of counter Xi's policies going forward. And really putting into place or furthering by all expectations this move towards the tightening of the rule of the party and also the assertiveness, if not aggressiveness, of China's actions internationally.
The Congress is witnessing a departure from rules set out by former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, who believed that no leader should be granted more than 2 terms in office. There is no indication how many more years at the helm Xi Jinping is planning. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
A dead iPod is remembered as expensive. It's the Onion Radio News. This is Doyle Redland reporting. Despite heroic efforts at resuscitation, a third-generation 30-gigabyte iPod, serial number AP356372, was pronounced dead early this morning at the age of 2. The iPod's closest companion, Sarah Zartman, says she'll never forget the great music it used to play, nor will she forget the nearly $500 price tag.
I'll remember those 3,500 songs as long as I live. That iPod was convenient, portable, and really pricey.
Zartman added that had she known the iPod's lithium-ion battery would have such a short lifespan, she might have spent more time listening to it. AP356372 is survived by a BlackBerry. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour of the program. Phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
You can join us online over at freetalklive.com. We're talking about prices generally going up on things, except for the housing market, where we're seeing a record number of homes dropping in price, according to the story at NY Post, the New York Post, nypost.com, saying that there's the home mortgage rates are doubled right now compared to what they were a year ago, and that is resulting in fewer buyers that are interested in buying. And so therefore, since the buyers aren't snapping up the homes in the way that they were a year ago, then home sellers are having to reduce their prices, and they're saying that amount of reductions, 7.9% of home listings, reporting price drops during the 4-week period ending October 9th is a record.
I mean, this sounds like good news, right? People want to buy homes. Yeah. And I mean, I prefer a buyer's market in general because I'm more often than not a consumer rather than a seller or a supplier or whatever. So generally, I would prefer things that I buy be cheaper so that, I have more money left over.
It's weird that it affects houses so much different than other products. Like cars are really expensive right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's because of shortages in replacement parts and stuff, though, right?
That's
like
true.
the chips they need.
The brand new chips.
Yeah, but even with houses, like lots of, like you said, like lumber and stuff like that is really expensive. So like building a house is super expensive. So you would think it's still weird that like a used home is, because that's the idea with the cars, right? It's like, used cars are really expensive right now because buying a new car is so expensive. But buying a new house is so expensive. Seems like, I don't know, it's just weird. It affects things so differently than any other product. And I get it's more expensive, but I don't know, cars are also a huge purchase for a lot of people.
They are, and it sucks. I'm going to have to replace my Eclipse soon, and I'm dreading it. Not just because I like the Eclipse, but because the used market's terrible right now. I'm not going to find something I like because the market is so much smaller than it was, 3 years ago when I bought the Eclipse, but it's also going to be 2 to 3 times the price that I paid for it. It sucks all around, and it's not going to get any better, and gold and cryptocurrency and silver can only do so much. It's going to suck all around.
The current median home asking price, which they're not saying what that is here, I don't know why they don't give us that number. So median means half the homes are higher than that price, half the homes are lower, whatever that is. And a 6.92% average long-term mortgage rate. Buyers are facing a record high monthly mortgage payment of $2,559.
Good Lord, that's a hell of a mortgage, man.
So that median price must be really high if that's the 30-year mortgage rate on that. Mortgage payments are 51% more expensive than they were at this time last year when buyers could expect to pay $1,698 per month on a 3% mortgage rate.
Even $1,600 seems excessive. I mean, it's been a long time since I seriously looked into the possibility of buying a house and did the numbers about how much the note was going to be and stuff like that. And this was in Arkansas or Mississippi rather, that I did this, but I was going to be looking at a note of like $800 to $900 a month for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, a nice house. And the area was very different, but still that's half of what people are paying now.
Did you live in Arkansas too?
No, but I worked in Memphis, and there was a lot of Arkansas where it's the same travel distance to get there. So, but no, I would never want to say that I lived in Arkansas. So
that's what I always think about.
Yeah, I never proceeded with that. I was like, then I got to tell my employer that I'm at Arkansas. I had no employer at the time.
I was depressed just driving through Arkansas the one time I've driven through it.
The Ozarks are beautiful, man. The mountains, they're great, but everywhere else, everywhere else is trailers and meth.
Yeah, it was bad. And Jesus billboards.
Oh yeah, so many of those. I think that it's way worse in Kentucky though. Like at least Arkansas has like this like pretty campy look to it. Like there's lots of like evergreen trees I noticed and really, really tall trees. Well, when I was first driving through there to come up here, it was like the first time I had been out of San Antonio in a couple of years, and I was like, these trees are huge. It's so crazy. And now they're like just normal sized trees, I guess, to New Hampshire.
So I don't miss the churches about the South. I always forget that because they're so much rarer here in New Hampshire.
Yeah, there's no Jesus billboards.
Actually, no. I did see a billboard in Peterborough, and now that I think of it, it's not necessarily Jesus, but it says like, it has a picture of a baby, and it says, babies are a precious gift. Don't abort them.
That's unusual.
Still, that's only one.
Yeah, it is unusual.
In the South, just driving from my sister's house into town to go to Walmart or something, you're going to pass 12 churches at least.
New Hampshire is the least churched state, if I recall correctly, meaning that while there are people who have religion in New Hampshire, there are not as many that go physically to an actual church.
And there's lots of way cooler churches. Like, I'd never heard of any actual Quakers. Like, I thought Quaker was the same as being Amish until I moved here and heard about it from Mark. I don't know why.
There's also the Next Level Church. They interviewed me when I ran for sheriff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
An actual Christian church interviewed me, the
really
open
cool.
Satanist. It was really cool. That's what you get here in New Hampshire.
I've heard a little bit about them. The one that the ones that you, or wait, the one that you guys went to in 2020 because they were against the mandates or the lockdowns.
That's Hope Chapel, right?
Yeah.
And even like the Universalists seem cooler than regular churches.
Okay, so they do finally get to the median price. So when we were looking at the numbers earlier, it's like, well, okay, well, what price are we basing this on? The $2,559 mortgage payment. Okay, median price according to them here is down 1% over the last 4 weeks, though it is still up 9% to $379,725 over the last year. So the median price in the United States for a home is almost $400,000.
That made my eye twitch. I would have expected it to be like $180,000. And like I said, it's been a long time since I looked into this, but holy crap.
So if it was $180,000, then maybe you would be looking at a mortgage payment closer to, $1,300 a month instead of $2,500.
Right.
So it gets a little bit more reasonable there at that point. But and of course, your market is going to vary, right? They're looking at the entire United States mortgage, or not mortgage, but home price isn't really useful. It's only really useful to look at the area in which you want to buy. So that's where it really matters what the median price is.
Right. A house in Bel Air is going to be more expensive than a house in Rochester, New Hampshire.
Correct. And in fact, I think I get the Zillow updates, which is a pretty cool website. They're not a sponsor or anything like that, but I do get their market reports for Keene. And according to that, Keene, New Hampshire, the typical home value, which isn't the same thing as a median value, typical home value is $289,000. So not quite as bad as national. And again, that's comparing apples to something else.
Yeah, and that's also not market price. That's just what it's valued at, so that's what you're going to be taxed at generally, and I think it's probably a state agent who's doing the actual appraising and valuation, I would suspect.
Let's see. That's pretty much the story there for home prices. So keep an eye out on that market, because if you're interested in buying a house, you should definitely be watching things, because if this trend continues, you're probably going to see some desperate sellers at some point. They're already saying sellers are dropping their prices. Buyers are not buying. Oh, there was one other interesting takeaway from this. The number of pending home sales. So that's the number of homes that are under contract, meaning that they've got an offer in, the seller has said, okay, let's do this, and they're moving towards closing, right? So there's always a long process. It takes usually like a month. You've got to get the house inspected, and then if it passes the inspection, then you got to make sure the paperwork's in order, and then finally you'll get to the closing, as long as there's not something really bad that popped up on the inspection. But it takes some number of weeks. So the number of home sales that are pending, they're going to happen, supposedly, but they haven't happened yet, is down 28% compared to last year. That is the sharpest rate of decline since the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic in May of 2020.
Well, another factor I just thought of is, isn't winter the worst time because to be looking at this, because people don't want to be moving in winter?
Well, it's not winter right now.
Well, I mean, so they're just stopping now, so that way they don't have to deal with this whole process and moving in winter.
They're looking at the whole country.
Yeah, and it's going to be winter in the whole country.
Yeah, summer just ended, though.
And I mean, in Mississippi, it's like 90 right now.
Yeah, that's not going to be affecting this. It's people don't want to buy right now. They're afraid because of the mortgage rates.
I wouldn't buy right now.
There's more coming up here in moments. Yeah, there may be a big crash coming in the housing market. Who knows? More coming up, though. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
So when talking to a liberal, you have to be politically correct. But when talking to a conservative, you have to be patriotically correct.
Yeah, it's funny how conservatives forget while they're making fun of liberals and how triggered they get over, social issues. But if you don't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem at a hockey game or something, you might get some glares. You might get some people really upset.
I actually had somebody tell me when I was at the State House last week, you should really be standing during the pledge. No, I shouldn't. I don't pledge allegiance to things that don't, give some kind of reciprocal
I'm a slave
protection.
To a piece of cloth. This is my stupid brain-dead life. Amen.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can bring up anything you want to discuss. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
Don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have there for you. We do have our own social media website. It is social.freetalklive.com. It's a Mastodon-based system. That means it's open source. It's self-hosted. We're running the server. We set the rules, and our rules are you have a lot more freedom to speak on social.freetalklive.com than you do anywhere else. Probably even more so than Kanye West's new Parler.com.
Did he actually buy it?
I guess he's in the process of it. I don't know if the deal's closed yet.
I heard rumors that he was going to. I mean, he could just, stop going on racist rants, but whatever, to each their own.
Well, if he buys it, maybe he'll change the rules on there.
Is he a racist?
I don't know.
Well, he did. The only racist thing he said is I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews.
Or is he just against the Jewish people that are in the seats of power? I don't know.
But why even target that? I mean, that's... This is the same argument that we've had with Christopher Cantwell and others. Why do you care about the Jewish people in the seats of power? It's the seats of power. Whoever is filling them, that is the issue. Right?
That's a good point.
I don't care what subculture controls the media. It's an issue that all media can fall into the hands of 5 or 6 families or groups or whatever. That's the problem.
But that being said, like, I still think that he should be able to go and speak wherever he, I think he should be allowed by the people who own Twitter to speak, because it's just like shutting down speech doesn't help anyone.
Well, right. And when he said whatever it was he said about DEFCON 3.
Yeah, because he's too stupid to know the difference.
Maybe that was it. I don't know.
It seemed like something that he wrote late at night when he had been drinking and smoking pot.
Could be. Nobody got to ask him, though. That's the thing. They banned him from the service, so he was never able to correct himself or clarify anything, because you only have 280 characters, and then they cut him off, so he couldn't even make a subsequent post after that. I don't know. But anyway, if you want to join our server, by the way, we don't limit you to 280 characters on social.freetalklive.com. I think our limit is 1,776, so you can go there and use that. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, if you're about to go to bed and you've been drinking or smoking pot or doing coke or whatever it was that Kanye West was doing, and you have this thought, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews, maybe wait until the next morning to post that, right? Maybe sleep on that one and revisit it the next day.
Let's go to the phones here. We got Robert in Vermont. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, you guys were talking about, inflation and the cost of housing and stuff like that. I was checking out the New Hampshire has this website, or I think you can go to, where you can see all the people that are on this pension plan. And I mean, I couldn't believe that there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that go out to all these folks that, I mean, and like, for instance, a lot of these folks are police officers.
Or just like bureaucrats, right?
Teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I mean,
explain this to me, because I'm not entirely clear on what a pension even is, right? That's not a retirement fund that someone has paid into their entire lives as sort of a savings account, right?
It's a pension plan that they set up with the state of New Hampshire, where they, become like a police officer.
I know, but that doesn't tell me what a pension is.
I don't know. Do you know, Ian? Difference between retirement plan and pension? I never really thought about it.
Pension is generally something you get when you work for the government.
Yeah.
So they'll pay you, like the cops, for instance, I think around here get like 90% of their last salary. So if they're making $100,000 at the end, they'll get $90,000 every year for the rest of their lives.
So it's not like a 401k or a retirement account or anything like that. It's just the government continues giving them a portion of their paycheck despite being retired.
And a retirement plan, like you were talking about, the 401k, requires you to contribute, and then your company that you work for also contributes to it, and then you can, I believe, collect it after a certain date when you're 65 or something like that when you're retired.
You can collect it at any time, but you're going to pay a lot higher taxes on it when you're younger, and that's the government's way of discouraging you from being a tax slave or ceasing to be a tax slave.
So, Robert, you're calling in to talk about pension amounts of government bureaucrats?
Yeah, I mean, even if one of these bureaucrats, if they're married and they die, that pension is still going to be paid out to their partner.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, because.
Wow.
I mean, that's all part of the deal. I mean, when you
what a scam.
Well, I mean, for the cops' wives, I'm okay with it, because 40% of them get the hell beaten out of them their entire lives anyway. So, okay, sure. Their husband's dead. Continue paying them, to make up for the suffering that the psychologically traumatized and abusive cop put them through.
They're just going to spend it on their Karen haircuts and like Michael Kors purses and going to Starbucks.
If you only worked, like, let's say, for 15 years for the government agency, why should you continue on and retire out until you die?
Doesn't make sense.
These pensions, and it's a waste. I mean,
it's a huge cost.
What's the percentage, Ian, that they go up each year on these pensions?
I don't know. Where is this list that you're talking about?
It's in the I saw it in the Concord Monitor. I sent it to you in a text.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll have to take a look at that.
I mean, it makes sense, though, especially with, the boomers retiring and all of that. There was supposed to be this great big thing about it, but there's more cops than ever. There's more bureaucrats than ever. The U.S. government's now trying to hire like 87,000 IRS agents. All of those people are going to get a pension. So when you have pension plans and you have government employees, and the government's one of the largest employers, that you're going to have a lot of tax money and a lot of inflation going just to pay those stupid pensions, because these people don't want to get real jobs and establish a 401k and a savings account and actually, provide for themselves.
Right. Most people have to actually plan for their retirement. They have to take some of the money they're earning and put it away in investments and, alternatives to the dollar, like we talked about earlier, and housing, and, have different streams of money that they can rely on for when they get older. But the government bureaucrats can just spend their money on fancy cars and fancy houses because they can rely on the government to pay for everything when they retire.
Sadly. And, I just want to point out to anyone listening, it's never too early to start planning for your retirement. I hate even saying that, but even if you're like 18 years old and you're working at McDonald's or whatever, the easiest way to do it.
Good time to start.
Yeah, just install the Acorns app and automatically, round up your debit card purchases to throw that money into savings. It costs you nothing. You'll never notice those 5-cent roundups or whatever from your bank account. But after 10 years, you'll look and, wow, that's $7,000 or $8,000. You can't retire on that, but it's better than $0.
Yeah, one of the best things, and Robert, thanks for bringing this up tonight. Appreciate the call. One of the best things that could be done to cut the size of government is to eliminate all government pensions and require government employees to be like every other employee anywhere, which is they have to save for their own retirement. That would really discourage the worst of the bureaucrats from taking those jobs, because then they would actually be more like servants than they are right now, which is total masters of the people, because it attracts the laziest of the lazy, the worst of the worst personalities who do not want to take any responsibility for their lives and want to live off of the taxpayer.
And it's clear that they don't think that they serve us the way they run away from cameras.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Ukraine says at least 8 people have died after a number of areas were hit by what's claimed to be Iranian-made kamikaze drones. Tehran's denied supplying drones to the Russian military. The Ukrainian government says hundreds of towns have lost power after critical infrastructure was hit. This comes as Russia has increased its missile attacks on Ukraine over recent days. NATO staging what it says is a routine nuclear exercise in the skies over Western Europe. This comes as tensions between the West and Russia continue to rise over Moscow's nuclear threats in Ukraine. Alex Cartier reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Fighter jets, long-range bombers and surveillance aircraft from more than a dozen NATO allies have taken to the sky for the alliance's annual nuclear drill. The exercise is designed to make sure NATO's nuclear deterrent capabilities are up to date. Despite NATO accusing the Kremlin of nuclear saber-rattling in the last few weeks, officials insist this drill is routine and was scheduled before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The drill will involve 60 aircraft from 14 different countries over 2 weeks, with NATO adding that no live weapons will be used.
The UK's new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt announced he will reverse most of the planned tax cuts set out by his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. Mr Hunt was appointed to the post on Friday after Mr Kwarteng was asked to stand down by the Prime Minister Liz Truss. But pressure is continuing to build for the Prime Minister. Laura Macon Isherwood has more from London.
In a televised statement, Mr. Hunt said it was an essential responsibility to make decisions necessary for long-term stability, saying that while cuts to stamp duty paid on home purchases would still go ahead, plans to reduce tax paid on basic rates of income from 20% to 19% would not. It's a big shake-up of the vision that the Prime Minister had until recently been selling. The markets appear to be responding to the new plan already, though, with the value of the pound rising.
Kanye West is getting into the media business. The rapper struck a deal to buy Parler, a conservative social media platform that emerged during the Trump presidency. The move comes after West was suspended from several other sites over anti-Semitic posts. Tony Waterman has more.
West said in a statement, quote, "We have to make sure we have the right to freely express ourselves." West has been suspended from Instagram and Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks, including one post in which he said he would go, quote, "DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Parler launched in 2018, but was blacklisted from Google and Amazon over its role in the January 6th attacks. The company says it expects to finalize the deal by the end of the year.
And hearing aids will now be allowed to be sold over the counter in the United States as a 5-year-old law finally takes effect. The hope is that the move will dramatically lower prices for devices that can cost thousands of dollars. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live phones are open. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And if there's any procrastinators out there who've been wanting to go to the Liberty in Our Lifetime event in Prague, tickets are still available. The cutoff, though, is going to be at the end of this week, so... well, that's when the event starts, October 21st through the 23rd. They are selling online tickets right up until the start of the event. So if you're late to the game here, you can still get the tickets. Whether you can get the plane tickets or not is another question. I don't know how that's going to work out for you, but LifetimeLiberty.com still has tickets available. The code, if you want the 20% off for being a Free Talk Live listener, is FTL20. It's happening this weekend in Prague. They're going to showcase autonomous cities and intentional communities springing up around the world, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. You want to know where Mark's going to be? He's at the event, so that's why he hasn't been on the air. He's been traveling around. He's going to be in Prague speaking at the Free Cities Foundation annual conference, which is called Liberty in Our Lifetime. 20% off tickets with code FTL20 when you check out at LifetimeLiberty.com. All right, so Aria, you had an economic-related story tonight about the inevitability of a recession.
Well, that's what Bloomberg is saying. The forecast for U.S. recession within this year, or within the next 12 months, rather, is hitting 100%. A U.S. recession is effectively certain in the next 12 months in new Bloomberg economics model projections, which they're characterizing as a blow to President Joe Biden's economic messaging ahead of the November midterms. And I think it's silly to blame the president for the recession or anything like that, but sure, I understand that's what Americans do.
Blame Congress, too, right? Because the presidents signed the bill. Both he and Trump signed the big multi-trillion-dollar giveaway packages that they brought in during the COVID situation. So Trump started it. Biden then picked up the ball and continued running with it, but neither of them could have done it without the help of Congress and the Federal Reserve.
Absolutely. The latest recession probability models by Bloomberg economists Anna Wong and Eliza Winger forecast a higher recession probability across all time frames, with the 12-month estimate of a downturn by October 2023 hitting 100%, which is up from 65%.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really even say they're going out on any kind of a limb, considering that their economic downturn has already happened. According to those who've been looking at I think it's the GDP is the number that they look at. If that number goes down 2 quarters in a row, it's considered by most economists to be a recession.
Maybe because that's like the old definition according to the U.S. government. Maybe they just mean in the Bloomberg article according to the new definition.
According to the new definition. Well, the thing is, Bonnie, they didn't define the new definition. When over the summer, when there was a big hubbub about how the White House was ignoring the historical definition of recession of 2 declining quarters of GDP in a row. They ignored that, and the woman, the black lady that they've got, who's their spokesperson now, she just kept on just denying that was the definition. She was never, and maybe it was the media's fault for not asking, or maybe they did, and I just didn't see the clip. But she did not say, oh, well, here's what we consider a recession to be. It was more like, well, we'll know a recession when we see it. And
I think she literally said that. She said something almost just like that, like, we'll know it when we see it.
Yes.
Isn't that what the Supreme Court said about pornography?
Yes.
Oh.
That's right.
Child porn or something?
No, it's just pornography in
Just
general.
Any porn.
Yeah. They were struggling to define it and why it wasn't art. And I think it was John Roberts who says, oh, I know it when I see it.
Oh, God.
The forecast, this economic forecast saying that there will be...
I don't even want to start thinking about what he might be into.
It's unwelcome news.
They're freaks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The black robes and everything. Yeah, they're weird, dude. It's a bad news for Biden, who has repeatedly said that the U.S. will avoid a recession and that any downturn would be very slight.
Hey, I remember when Biden said that the vaccines are guaranteed to work, 100% effective.
I don't remember him saying that.
They all said it.
But I do remember, them peddling this idea that, turns out inflation is a good thing. And we were like, hey, guys, they're going to destroy the economy. There's going to be a recession and it's going to suck. And the media was like, no. This inflation, this is good. This is going to make everything better. And now, I haven't heard Biden say that the U.S. will avoid a recession, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we're going into the midterms. He can't be honest with people.
Right. Well, he's going to say anything that it takes to get Democrats elected.
But what's weird is I've still seen more anti-Biden stuff from the mainstream media, which is kind of weird to me. Like, this is Bloomberg, and they're saying, oh, well, we're definitely going into a recession. It seems like something they'd be like, oh, let's not even talk about that. And then earlier, I saw lots of mainstream media talking about him touching that young girl, saying no serious guys until you're 30.
Did you see that clip?
No.
But it's just that's not even news.
Hold on. What?
There was this girl, and she looked like 12 to 15, but Ian thinks she's 18. But anyways,
it was out of college.
But she was still a young girl visiting or something. She had braces. She looked obviously 12. And he was behind her taking a picture, both hands on his shoulders. And then he says, hey, no serious guys until you're 30, okay? And
he said, this is the advice I give all my granddaughters and daughters.
I didn't see that part.
And then he said,
no serious guys until you're 30. And then she turns around okay, I'll keep that in mind. And she obviously looks more than just ugh, this is annoying. She's ew, I think.
But the weird thing is, why did she get that close to him in the first place?
Because she's a little kid, and she's like, oh, the president. It's why did her mom let her get that close to him? Yeah. I mean, but lots of people don't realize that this isn't news. He does this all the time. But the only point I was really trying to get to was, normally you wouldn't think that the mainstream media would even report on that type of thing. Like when Joe Biden says, strimple, crimple, dumple, or whatever word he makes up. I just made that one up. They don't, usually report on it. And it's just weird.
Was it actually the mainstream media reporting on it?
Yeah, I saw it on my iPhone news.
Wow.
Well, Biden's not a very sympathetic figure, and the media in the United States, they're not going to hold the president accountable for anything serious, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to hold him accountable for the COVID-19 lies that we were told, or for the bungling of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, or the fact that, he seems to want to nudge us a little bit closer to World War or anything like that. And they're not really going to hold him accountable for this. I mean, they're not saying that this is Biden's fault or anything like that. They're just saying, oh, this is bad news for Biden. Mm. So, I mean, they will point out things that are unfavorable to the Democratic president or to the Republican president. But as far as you said, actually standing there and doing their job and saying, well, okay, what is the definition of a recession that you're actually using then?
They haven't said.
They're not going to actually dive into that level of accountability.
Well, and your story hasn't defined it yet, have they? And they've just said
it is not
100% guaranteed within the next 12 months.
Well, as far as I can tell, we're already in a recession, so it's a pretty safe bet to say there's going to be one because we're in one.
That's how I feel about it.
But tightening financial conditions, persistent inflation, and expectations of a hawkish Federal Reserve pressing ahead with rate hikes are raising the risk of a contraction. I don't think we ever got to the story, but last week I had a story about the UN requesting the Federal Reserve and other central banks to not raise interest rates.
I don't know if you were on the show, but yeah, we definitely did cover that one. And they are going to continue raising them, by the way. They promised to. They said as long as inflation continues, they're going to keep raising the rates.
Well, they're the ones who control inflation, though.
Yes, that's the part they don't tell you about.
That's insane. As long as we continue doing X, we're going to also continue doing Y.
Right.
But they just, the media and the world and the powers that be don't tell you that, they are also the ones who are choosing to do X.
That's right. The inflation starts with them. And their idea of quote-unquote fighting it is to raise interest rates, which the only way that's going to fight inflation is it's going to limit the amount of bank loans that are issued. Because that is another way that the money supply inflates, is the more bank loans there are, the greater the supply of money, because you have to remember, banks are authorized by who?
The Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve to essentially do their own money printing. So it's not just the Federal Reserve who can print out dollars, it's every single federally licensed bank in the Federal Reserve system. Whenever you go in for a car loan or a home loan or a business loan, whatever kind of loan you're getting from the bank, that money isn't coming from the vault.
Doesn't exist.
It's not coming from other depositors. They literally create it when you sign on the loan forms. They use your signature to back the loan, essentially. They create it from thin air.
They do. It's counterfeit money.
So that's not going to happen as often, but it sure as hell isn't going to stop the government from demanding more money printing from the Federal Reserve, even though interest rates keep going up. It is Free Talk Live.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, hey, who do you think excuse me?
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. Bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. Forkfest 2023 is happening before the Porcupine Freedom Festival in 2023. It is going back to where it all started, which is prior to Porkfest. Now, if you don't yet have your tickets for the Porcupine Freedom Festival, you might want to get those sooner rather than later. The event, Porkfest, has sold out 2 years in a row, and there's a darn good chance it's going to sell out again. This thing has become a really great event. It has really risen back to its prominence as it should have, and so Forkfest has kind of accomplished its mission, which was kind of the point of Forkfest. It was designed as an alternative, a decentralized alternative to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and we're happy to say that the Porcupine Freedom Festival has done some decentralizing as a result, hopefully.
It has. I mean, there used to be, during the dark days, there were the pork rangers who were riding around on golf carts, acting like police officers. It was
a real turnoff.
It was.
People, yeah. So that's changed now, and I think they've really taken the Porcupine Freedom Festival in a great direction. So the general consensus of Forkfest attendees this year was we need to cut the length back to just a weekend prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So it's going to be June 15th through the 18th. Of course, there's nothing official with Forkfest, so if you want to come for longer, then, come earlier, whatever. I don't know how many people will be there for that, but somebody probably will. You can go to forkfest.party to learn more about the event. You can get connected with other Forkfest attendees in the chat rooms and the forums that you can link to from forkfest.party. But most importantly, if you're going to go to this thing, get moving on it sooner rather than later. Go ahead and call up Rogers Campground, lock in your RV site, your motel room, or your campsite for June 15th through the 18th, and stay on through the Porcupine Freedom Festival as well, if you can afford the time and the money to do that, because you do need to have a ticket for the Porcupine Freedom Festival still, while right now there's still no tickets for Forkfest, and hopefully there never will be. So once again, it's forkfest.party. We will be broadcasting there. We look forward to seeing you. So, Aria, more do you have to share about this recession prediction?
I mean, there is more. It gets into some boring details, but not all of it's necessarily boring. The forecast, of course, is unwelcome news for Biden, who, as we said, described it as being very slight. The possibility of an economic downturn. The downturn itself would be very slight.
Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve Chairman, I believe, said it was pretty much heading that direction. Jamie Dimon from the JP Morgan Chase Bank has been predicting financial doom and gloom.
I mean, it's pretty obvious to anyone who's paying attention that there's bad economic times ahead for people.
There's bad economic times right now, and we know that it's there's no direction that the government is going to be able to go in to get away from this. I mean, the economic you cannot get away from certain laws of economics, right? Like, so they've kicked the can down the road so far, it's not clear how much further they're going to be able to kick it.
It's just like, any other natural law. You can beat gravity to an extent, right? You can hold your arm up however much you want, right? But you're going to get tired. The longer you do it,
it's coming down at some point.
Gravity is going to win, and you will put your arm down.
Yeah.
And then we have the same thing going on here. No matter how much they want to hold their economy up, it's going to the ground. And there's nothing they can do to stop it in the long term.
All they can do is, control the narrative and make things seem as they aren't, but they can't actually change how things are. Yep, they can lie.
And once people start literally starving and stuff like that, the lies from the government aren't going to matter to them. The government can say, no, your belly's really full. You're not hungry at all.
That's when you get to the point of overthrowing, not that I recommend violence, but you look at countries like Sri Lanka and others recently where you literally have had thousands of people rushing the presidential palace, tearing the place apart, partying in the pool in the backyard, and throwing these government goons out of office. The economy or the economic system here was designed this way. It was designed this way from the very beginning. There was never a way that it could go on forever because it's a central currency. It has no backing. Now, initially it did, but they pulled that. So ever since they pulled the backing of the currency, it was just a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Now, when that exactly is going to occur and whether or not we're observing it in a slow motion crash right now, we'll only know when we look back on it, I think.
I think it's slow motion right now, but it's not going to stay slow motion forever.
It could increase for sure, and it's at a clip, especially if the world governments decide to start selling off their dollar holdings.
Yes, that would be very bad news.
That could accelerate that process.
This model is more certain of a recession than other forecasts. A separate Bloomberg survey of 42 economists predicts the probability of a recession over the next 12 months now stands at 60%, which is up from 50% a month earlier. What changed for these 42 economists from last month to this month that they're like, oh, no, 10% more of them are now convinced that there's going to be a recession? Nothing changed. It just proceeded along the same path that was already on.
I don't know.
How are they not paying it? They're professional economists. Theoretically, how do they not see this?
I mean, that just professional economists just means they went to school.
That's true.
And they've got a job in the field. Somebody's paying them to be an economist, and they have a college degree. I mean, that's really all that means. And if they went to government school, like most colleges, they were taught Keynesianism. They were taught about, it's good to have inflating money supplies.
It's good to spend money, for governments to spend money.
Right. War is good for the economy. They're taught all kinds of mythology.
The forecasts provide a sharp contrast to Biden's upbeat tone. The president has focused on strong job growth as he campaigns to help Democrats retain their House and Senate majorities in elections 3 weeks from now. That's the reason Biden is being positive. He doesn't want to open up with people and be like, hey, look, things are going to be... A real leader would do this. He would say, look, things are going to be bad. What you can do to protect yourself and your family and people you care about is to run away from the USD as fast as you can.
Yeah, but he can't say that because he's owned by the banks.
I mean, he could say that. He just is a coward, and he probably doesn't even believe that because he's so wrapped up in his own supremacy and the supremacy of the ideology that he's espousing that he doesn't even believe it. But
you're right. But if he did say those things, he'd probably be assassinated.
Yeah, I was going to say he'd probably get shot by a far-right extremist.
Yeah. But inflation, which has hovered near a 4-decade high, and that's after they changed how they measure inflation, by the way, has been a drag on Democrats' prospects in an election where polls indicate the economy is voters' top issue. And I know Democrats hate that because the economy isn't going too well right now, and people are sick of masks. They would rather push us back to COVID-19, the powers that be, because that's an easy win for them, except Americans are sick of it.
Well, aren't they already talking about some new nightmare COVID variant to come back this wintertime?
Didn't they talk about like 5 of those in 2021, like the new doom and gloom variant, doomsday variant, and nothing happened really?
They are talking about this as a nightmare variant that supposedly bypasses immunity. They don't say whether it's natural immunity or the vaccine immunity, but
don't they all bypass vaccine immunity?
I mean, it's a cold, so I wouldn't expect my immunity from having COVID-19 2 years ago to really matter to whatever strain of COVID-19 is going around today. And there does seem to be some strain going around today. Like several of my colleagues are currently positive with COVID-19.
Oh, interesting.
But I mean, no one cares because...
Are they still coming to work?
Yeah, because it's been clear now for quite a long time. No one's saying it. No one has admitted how badly they overreacted throughout the world or throughout the United States or throughout this one place of employment. No one is saying, good Lord, guys, we are so sorry for this nonsense that we put you through over this something that is just a cold. But they're acting far more rationally. They're treating it like it's actually just a cold now.
Right.
And that's rather refreshing. However, it would be nice for these people to say, acknowledge, I was wrong. I overreacted. I tanked the economy. I caused a lot of suffering. I went along with some really horrific behaviors, and I committed horrible acts against my fellow human beings who chose to dress in a way that I didn't approve of, and I'm sorry for all of these things that I did.
Yeah, politicians sure as hell aren't going to do that. Maybe your friends might, have the intellectual honesty to do that, but that's about as far as that's going.
So the model decreases the likelihood of a recession going forward to only 73% within the next 11 months. And the 10-month probability rose to 25% from 0%. So this model seems to suggest that 10 to 12 months from now, the recession is almost certain. But 9 months from now, not so much.
Weird.
I don't know how they came to that, but
that's confusing.
Based on the definition of a recession and how the government has defined it, we seem to be in a recession, and it was obvious that we were going to be in a recession from the moment that governments around the world shut down their entire economies in order to protect people from the cold.
Well, right. And remember, recessions are about declining investments, right? There are fewer people willing to create a new business, for instance, take out a loan to open up a shop or whatever. And how many people are going to want to open a new business in these circumstances, especially in places like Europe? The energy costs are starting to hit the United States, but where it costs 3 to 5 times or 10 times as much on just the power bill alone, why would you even want to try? And that's going to put a lot of businesses out of business, of course. Hour 3 is coming up.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Ukraine says at least 8 people have died after a number of areas were hit by what's claimed to be Iranian-made kamikaze drones. Tehran's denied supplying drones to the Russian military. The Ukrainian government says hundreds of towns have lost power after critical infrastructure was hit. This comes as Russia has increased its missile attacks on Ukraine over recent days. NATO staging what it says is a routine nuclear exercise in the skies over Western Europe. This comes as tensions between the West and Russia continue to rise over Moscow's nuclear threats in Ukraine. Alex Cartier reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Fighter jets, long-range bombers and surveillance aircraft from more than a dozen NATO allies have taken to the sky for the alliance's annual nuclear drill. The exercise is designed to make sure NATO's nuclear deterrent capabilities are up to date. Despite NATO accusing the Kremlin of nuclear saber-rattling in the last few weeks, officials insist this drill is routine and was scheduled before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The drill will involve 60 aircraft from 14 different countries over 2 weeks, with NATO adding that no live weapons will be used.
The UK's new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt announced he will reverse most of the planned tax cuts set out by his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. Mr Hunt was appointed to the post on Friday after Mr Kwarteng was asked to stand down by the Prime Minister Liz Truss. But pressure is continuing to build for the Prime Minister. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
In a televised statement, Mr Hunt said it was an essential responsibility to make decisions necessary for long-term stability, saying that while cuts to stamp duty paid on home purchases would still go ahead, plans to reduce tax paid on basic rates of income from 20% to 19% would not. It's a big shake-up of the vision that the Prime Minister had until recently been selling. The markets appear to be responding to the new plan already, though, with the value of the pound rising.
Kanye West is getting into the media business. The rapper struck a deal to buy Parler, a conservative social media platform that emerged during the Trump presidency. The move comes after West was suspended from several other sites over anti-Semitic posts. Tony Waterman has more.
West said in a statement, quote, "We have to make sure we have the right to freely express ourselves." West has been suspended from Instagram and Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks, including one post in which he said he would go, quote, "DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Parler launched in 2018, but was blacklisted from Google and Amazon over its role in the January 6th attacks. The company says it expects to finalize the deal by the end of the year.
And hearing aids will now be allowed to be sold over the counter in the United States as a 5-year-old law finally takes effect. The hope is that the move will dramatically lower prices for devices that can cost thousands of dollars. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the historic 20th Communist Party Congress underway in Beijing. It is a foregone conclusion that the delegates will vote to grant Xi Jinping an unprecedented third term in the presidency. And already the Congress has heard a vigorous defence of China's adherence to a zero-COVID policy, plus muscular language from President Xi about Taiwan. But US analysts like Bob McMahon of the Council on Foreign Relations say the meeting is equally about cementing the Communist Party's grip on power in China.
It's expected that Xi will populate the Standing Committee of the Politburo with his own choices, really cementing his support and the people who are aligned with him and all sorts of things. Again, by most accounts and expectations, you'll see references to Xi Jinping thought, which is echoing what we had seen under the Mao Zedong era with Mao thought, which is incorporated into the Constitution, making it harder to sort of counter Xi's policies going forward. And really putting into place or furthering by all expectations this move towards the tightening of the rule of the party and also the assertiveness, if not aggressiveness, of China's actions internationally.
The Congress is witnessing a departure from rules set out by former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, who believed that no leader should be granted more than 2 terms in office. There is no indication how many more years at the helm Xi Jinping is planning. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
A dying Chevron executive is excited to one day become oil. A man wearing red glasses and pink pants is probably Dutch or something, and the report of a popular fish's death is starting to get around the tank.
This is the Onion Week in Review. The nation was once again wowed this week by the feats of very strong little boy Michael Sartinsky, who, after removing his t-shirt to better display his impressive physique, deadlifted an entire frozen turkey over his head and held it aloft for 3 full seconds. The latest demonstration of the pint-sized muscle man's almost inhuman abilities comes on the heels of multiple accomplishments involving incredible displays of speed, strength, and endurance. Over the past 4 months alone, Sartinsky cleared the 3-foot chasm between his brother's bed and his own, beat his fully grown Uncle Scott in a foot race, and threw a tennis ball clear onto the roof of his 2-story house.
Pound for pound, I honestly don't think there's a stronger boy on earth. Have you felt his muscles? They're like solid rocks.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, kicking off the third hour of the program. The phones are open here at 603-283-6160. We've been kind of focused on economic changes, inflation hitting the price of candy and sugar, and other things related to Halloween. Of course, inflation is hitting everything, because that's what happens when you inflate the money supply, is it makes the price of everything go up. We talked about home sales falling, though, in that particular category. And you can, of course, bring up absolutely anything that you want to discuss here on Free Talk Live. And the likelihood of a recession, according to some experts, is 100% within the next 12 months, although I pointed out that, according to the statistics from the summertime, it's already here. But it's Ian, Bonnie, and Arya in the studio. Let's go to the phones to your calls and thoughts. Marco is on the line in Rhode Island. Go ahead, Marco.
What's happening, my porcupine friends? How's things there? I just had to dial in. You're singing my tune. Besides the death metal, I was enchanted by the topic here. So,
well, welcome.
What death metal?
Yeah, we don't really play death metal on the show, but it's heavy metal.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But Marco, since you asked, it's gorgeous here in New Hampshire right now. It is peak leaf season at the moment, and anywhere
it seems
you drive,
like it's been lasting for weeks. I've thought it was peak for a while now, and usually it feels so fleeting. I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really, really gorgeous here right now.
It was slow. Last year it seemed to happen too fast.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel like the leaves just drop real fast.
Yeah.
But
I wish it was a little warmer. But
it's not that bad.
It's not.
Really.
It's not at all. I mean, it's going up to close to 70 this weekend, so it's not bad by any means.
It was cold today with all the rain and stuff, but it's going to go back up.
Go ahead, Marco. What was on your mind tonight?
So I wanted to comment a little bit about the economy. For those of you that kind of know a little bit about economics, or maybe don't, there's leading economic indicators, there's laggards. Unfortunately, TV always tells us the laggards, right? The stuff that's easy to point out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of leading indicators like small business, collections, and what's going on Main Street. We're always thinking about Wall Street when we think finances, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, most of the lending capital that the banks have given out, which the banks are leveraged 16 to 1 on average, right? So the lending that they're doing adds to the entire debt picture. So
when you said they're leveraged 16 to 1, what exactly does that mean?
That means that for every $1 in deposits, they've got $16 of mortgages and loans.
Got it. Wow. Thank you.
So what that means is that, you're hearing about all of these great, grandiose things that big corporations are doing, but Main Street you don't hear about until it's too late. So I'm kind of on the front lines. I work with small businesses setting up health insurance and benefits, retirement, all the different things that, make a small business, retain its employees and provide benefit packages similar to what a corporation might or the government.
Okay.
So the issues that I'm seeing now is a lot of the costs associated with health insurance, the costs associated with benefits, and just in general, a lot of companies are unwilling to just lay people off right away. They start with cutting benefits. And from what I've seen on Main Street is that's definitely happening right now. So most of the renewals on health insurance that were some higher plans where there was a much lower deductible are going to the high deductible plans. People are putting off adding anything else.
So just to clarify, you're saying mom and pop businesses that have health plans for their employees are at some point going to be breaking the news to the employees that, hey, we still have a health plan for you, but the deductible went from X to Y, 500 to 1,000 or 1,000 to 2,000 or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. What I'm hearing also is a lot of them are saying that in a year to 5 years, a lot of them are owned by, 55, 60-year-olds. Their willingness to sell has gone up.
Mm.
So a lot of people are trying to move out of the small business space. So it's really Main Street America is taking quite a hit.
Yeah, I recently learned that
bailouts.
one of my favorite restaurants here in Keene, a popular little Belgian sandwich place, is looking to sell. And for the first time in my life, I'm legitimately considering purchasing it.
Can you say which one it is, or is that this is like a secret that they're willing
I don't think it's a secret. It's Fritz here in Keene.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the only Belgian sandwich place. I thought you knew what that was.
He's looking to retire.
If you said fries, I would have been like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, what happens if he can't sell it, though?
I don't think he's going to close.
That's why Ari needs to buy it.
Go ahead, Marco.
That's one of the conundrums with small business, is that the amount of people in families and employee base that want to buy, or even people who have the money to. Like a business is not something you could buy with 10% down like you can real estate. Typically, you got to have 30-40% down. You know, the credit to sign leases. You got to have lines of credit. So, like, you know, a lot of your business, especially restaurants have such small margins that being able to buy a restaurant and run it profitably is a very hard thing. So, like, a lot of our favorite little downtown restaurants, as much as we supported them during COVID with takeout and what we could, a lot of them unfortunately are going to be closing up shop just because many of the owners I talk to, they have a lot of pride invested. You know, it's a lot of times it's a family business. What they will say to me is that, hey, I'm funding payroll out of pocket, or I'm not taking a salary this quarter. And you can only do that for so long.
Right.
That's the unfortunate thing.
That's true from my experience as someone working in the food industry now, and it's screwed up because McDonald's and Wendy's and Domino's and all of these other corporatized restaurants, they are doing just fine. They're making record amounts of money, while the Jamaican place, the local burger places, they're suffering.
Struggling.
They're paying their employees out of pockets, but the franchisee owner of McDonald's, he's making bank. Because these people can't get enough of this cheap fast food nonsense.
Well, let me ask you a related question here, Marco. On the point about these older folks who own these businesses, they've had them for years in the family, they're experienced, they want to sell it. If, as you're saying here, the buyer has to really have their financial ducks in a row. They've got to have, you said, 40% down in some cases. They've got to have lines of credit available. And so in order to afford this, the average buyer probably doesn't have $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever the selling price would be on this particular business. So they're going to have to take out a loan. Well, now we're seeing loan rates are going up, right? Because the Federal Reserve is raising rates. That's going to make it less attractive to take out those loans, which means that the potential, the potential buyers for these businesses is going to be a smaller pool. Am I right about that?
You're absolutely right, and one of the factors is that the amount of banks that want to lend in that space is smaller and smaller, because the banks are always looking at companies that have, you know, books and records, clear policies, a good, you know, just a good business in general. And usually a mom and pop, they find it difficult, especially to keep things running, to justify putting all the cash in. So they don't show well on a balance sheet, and they typically get sold for what's called an asset sale. That's where you just sell the business for what the assets are worth.
Right. If it's a restaurant, you get an oven, you get a refrigerator, and you know, whatever tables and chairs are worth.
Yep. So it's a very sad time for the families that have hung on for this amount of time, and it's and I work a lot with veteran business owners. I don't know if you know this. In New Hampshire, there's a guy who's excellent, Miguel Hernandez. I want to give him a shout from the SBA if you have an issue. He's been wonderful and instrumental to a lot of veteran business owners, which I've taught on Pease and Hanscom Air Force Base veterans that are getting out. I mean, nothing to me screams liberty like I don't want to work for the government anymore and I want to start a business. So, you know, those are the folks that I stand up and help to start up and finance businesses. And I've done plenty in New Hampshire and Maine too. So there are folks that I run into that come out of the military and they're like, you know, I got out of the military, I went this route, and it's great and all. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going back into government. So it's really, it's getting to a point now where, you know, there's a paycheck.
They want that guaranteed paycheck. They want the safety.
It's a paycheck versus playcheck. You know what I mean? the plate check only works so long until you need a paycheck.
Well, here's another problem with buying any of these businesses is you're going to be taking on a crippled situation. I mean, the business you mentioned, Aria, has been very restricted as far as its hours, and they can't do deliveries right now. They just don't have the staff, and that's true of so many places where they don't have full staff or even close to full staff. So you're inheriting somebody else's problem when you buy any of these businesses, plus all the loans and everything. Marco, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate the expertise and sort of the inside scoop there on what's happening on Main Street. Really important perspective, and thank you for that. There's more coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live phone
Phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up absolutely anything you want. And just had an interesting conversation with a guy about local businesses and how, lots of the mainstream media is reporting on mega corporations and inflation and how it's affecting them. But what about the mom and pop businesses?
It is giving me a creepy feeling that they're trying to funnel us all into these horrible corporate businesses being our only options for work and for buying things. And it already seems like that. It's it used to be I don't know, less than a decade ago, I could be oh, what if this exists somewhere in the world? What if I wanted to buy this product that I just thought of? I don't know, a shirt with a specific print on it. I could just Google that and I'm going to be able to find that because somewhere on the internet, somebody is selling it. And now it's that's not necessarily true every time anymore. It's if it's too specific, I might not find someone somewhere in the world selling it because there's just less businesses. And
see, I get sort of the opposite results. Just browsing Facebook or whatever, I'll get advertised a T-shirt that says something that's so bizarrely specific, I'm a woman born in August who lives in New Hampshire, who's from the deep South, and I'm a Satanist, and that could literally only fit one person. And it's an AI just took some characteristics and slapped them on a T-shirt that belongs to me, and some random T-shirt company will print it if I'm willing to give them $18.
But they're probably Dropbox companies, so they just have a whole bunch of different generic brands. That shirt doesn't exist until someone orders it.
Well, right. That's what they have. A Dropbox wouldn't be the right word. Drop ship, maybe.
Drop ship, yeah.
One-off orders where they just print to order, basically. And that's a whole new industry that's come about in the last
and plus,
decades.
it's just you're going to get one quality. It's not going to be what I really mean is oh, I wonder if a beautiful dress with green lace, something like what I'm imagining exists. And it's all you find is the corporate, ugly, looks just like everything else type of thing that's sort of like what you're thinking of. I can't think of an exact example off the top of my head to explain it, but it's if I'm just does something like this exist? Oh, that'd be cool if I can find something unique like what I want, and I try to look for it. It's all I'm going to get is offered the same 4 stores over and over again to click on.
If you want something unique, you're going to have to hire a tailor. You're going to have to hire somebody to
That's what it feels like.
Yourself.
It's the only option. And I don't feel like it felt like that when I first graduated high school and was working and had money for the first time.
I thought that was sort of always the only realistic thing. If I want a unique, skirt or something, then I'm going to have to hire someone to make it.
But I mean something like what I want. Something like what I want, not oh, I bet this exact thing will exist. But usually it's oh, I can get something close. Usually, as in years ago, it would be I could get something pretty close to what I'm thinking and be oh, this is perfect. And now it's oh, I'm just getting I want to look up a shirt with strawberries on it, and it's for just a random example, I want to look up a shirt with a pattern of pretty strawberries on it, and I'm getting some type of, I don't know, it just smells corporate thing, maybe pink, not exactly what I'm looking for, maybe a print of I love strawberries, something stupid that is nothing like what I'm thinking, and you don't have a whole bunch of options. It's that runs out real quick and it's showing you black shirts all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, Google and the internet in general, they suck right now. And I think most people don't realize just how much the internet just sucks right now. It's unusable. It's trash.
Yeah.
The greatest thing humanity ever invented. And we turned it into just absolute garbage with Facebook and Google and Amazon and Twitter and these other things. I was recently talking to some public radio people who were here from Germany, and they're Web 3.0 is this big thing, and it's going to be blockchain and meta. And I was no. That's what the Web 2, that's what the people who destroyed the internet want Web 3.0 to be. But what it's actually going to be is what the internet was supposed to be in the first place. Because if I've felt anything from watching people react to the internet today, it's that they hate it. They're addicted to it because it's a Skinner box, not because they enjoy it, but because it's giving them little dopamine hits, and that's not going to work forever. And it's not going to work in this new model. They're just never going to sign up. They're never going to take the next leap because they've already gone through the addiction. They already know what it's like to be addicted, and they're not going to join your stupid VR Facebook when they've already suffered the same problems that Facebook put them through, only now it's in VR. It's not going to happen, and the internet is trash. So yeah, I think those companies probably still exist, but trying to find them on the internet is a complete waste of time.
Maybe what you're referring to, Bonnie, is this, what we've seen recently post-COVID is that companies have been whittling down their inventory. So there were news stories about how Coca-Cola was, for instance, eliminating some of its least popular sodas. I don't remember if it was Tab or something like that, but there was like a big, the Tab fans were outraged that they were canceling.
I don't know what Tab is.
Exactly. That's why they're getting rid of it. It's
like RC Cola, right?
Yeah, it's an old cola brand that I think Coca-Cola purchased it at some point, and they kept it alive for some number of years, and then they looked at the numbers and they said, well, not as many people are buying this, so we're just going to eliminate it from our product line. And there have been other companies that have been doing the same thing, where they're simplifying their product line to give fewer choices. Now, I'm thinking more on the lines of consumables, but you're thinking of clothing, so maybe the same problem is affecting clothing as well, where clothing manufacturers, some of them are probably doing one-offs like you're talking about, where they have a whole bunch of designs and then they just slap it on a plain old t-shirt, and then others that might have had more variety are whittling down the variety to make sure that they have more
it could be something
things
like that,
in inventory.
But even when I wanted to buy my ring, it's like it seemed like there was about 10 stores where I could look at online.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem like there was a store that would be really unique that I could find something exactly like what I was thinking of. It was all like, if I wanted something like that, I had to customize it, and
for a lot of money.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like there's less choices on the internet, and I can just tell.
Yeah, well,
that's because it's all being filtered through Facebook, Google, and Amazon, and Etsy and Wish.
Etsy and Wish is really bad, because you'll be like, oh, what's this? It looks like a cool... Oh, it's a Wish store. I mean, not a Wish store, an Etsy store. I don't know how to explain that.
Well, what's bad about that? Isn't Etsy
anything,
like the eBay competitor where people handmade crafts?
I don't know exactly what Etsy is. I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about that in and of itself. I mean, the companies that, everything is being filtered through could be great, but they're sort of not. I don't know about Etsy in particular, but...
I've never bought anything there, but I've always gotten the impression that, at least initially when it was building its business, it was based on people actually making things in their own home, kind of self-made craft that they were selling. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that now, but...
I have no idea.
It's what it is, and there's just a certain Etsy quality. It's not going to be really good quality.
Well, it's handmade.
Well, I would think you would have a range. I would think you'd have a range of
a lot
really
of stuff
awesome
is just like...
to not so great.
A lot of stuff on there is just like, you get the same type of thing every time. It's like people have a side hustle. They throw stuff together. It's not like, somebody has this. I mean, there's probably some people that have super, they're passionate about this, but it's not going to last that long if they're putting too much money into something. The thing is, if you're looking for a new, this is specifically what I'm talking about. I'm like, oh, I want to buy something, but I don't want to give a whole bunch of money to a corporation, and I don't want a teenager making it in their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in that category that exists. It's not a corporation that I want to buy my clothes from. It's not a teenager making it in their bedroom and it's ugly.
Wow.
There's no in between.
Okay. I'll take your word
this
for
is
it.
a cool new store. I've never heard of this store. I feel like that would happen all the time when I was in high school. My sister would be like...
You mean online?
Yeah. I found this cool new store I've never heard of before that's definitely not a corporation. That just doesn't happen on the internet anymore because search results suck. And people have been noticing it with Google Images, not enough image results come up. It's the same thing.
There's more coming up here. The number 603-283-6160.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Ukraine says at least 8 people have died after a number of areas were hit by what's claimed to be Iranian-made kamikaze drones. Tehran's denied supplying drones to the Russian military. The Ukrainian government says hundreds of towns have lost power after critical infrastructure was hit. This comes as Russia has increased its missile attacks on Ukraine over recent days. NATO staging what it says is a routine nuclear exercise in the skies over Western Europe. This comes as tensions between the West and Russia continue to rise over Moscow's nuclear threats in Ukraine. Alex Cartier reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Fighter jets, long-range bombers and surveillance aircraft from more than a dozen NATO allies have taken to the sky for the alliance's annual nuclear drill. The exercise is designed to make sure NATO's nuclear deterrent capabilities are up to date. Despite NATO accusing the Kremlin of nuclear saber-rattling in the last few weeks, officials insist this drill is routine and was scheduled before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The drill will involve 60 aircraft from 14 different countries over 2 weeks, with NATO adding that no live weapons will be used.
The UK's new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt announced he will reverse most of the planned tax cuts set out by his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. Mr Hunt was appointed to the post on Friday after Mr Kwarteng was asked to stand down by the Prime Minister Liz Truss. But pressure is continuing to build for the Prime Minister. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
In a televised statement, Mr Hunt said it was an essential responsibility to make decisions necessary for long-term stability, saying that while cuts to stamp duty paid on home purchases would still go ahead, plans to reduce tax paid on basic rates of income from 20% to 19% would not. It's a big shake-up of the vision that the Prime Minister had until recently been selling. The markets appear to be responding to the new plan already, though, with the value of the pound rising.
Kanye West is getting into the media business. The rapper's struck a deal to buy Parler, a conservative social media platform that emerged during the Trump presidency. The move comes after West was suspended from several other sites over anti-Semitic posts. Tony Waterman has more.
West said in a statement, quote, "We have to make sure we have the right to freely express ourselves." West has been suspended from Instagram and Twitter over anti-Semitic remarks, including one post in which he said he would go, quote, "DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Parler launched in 2018, but was blacklisted from Google and Amazon over its role in the January 6th attacks. The company says it expects to finalize the deal by the end of the year.
And hearing aids will now be allowed to be sold over the counter in the United States as a 5-year-old law finally takes effect. The hope is that the move will dramatically lower prices for devices that can cost thousands of dollars. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Is Free Talk Live. Phones are open and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Is Bonnie right when she says that the internet's product selection has gotten way worse? Ghetto?
The internet has just gotten ghetto, like Arya was saying.
Yeah, Arya, you said the internet's just awful now, basically.
It is, and I don't think people realize it because they become so numb to it.
Well, they're not even on the internet, right? They're just on Facebook constantly, or Twitter, or TikTok. They're just using one website and barely even leave, right?
That's true as well. And if they do go to another website, what they find is that the actual content that they're trying to look at is maybe 25 to 30% of the page. And the rest of it's just ads and trackers and, hey, share this to Facebook, share this to Twitter. It's not the actual content they're looking for. But I think I can summarize what Bonnie was trying to say in the last segment. Like, if I want to buy a computer thing and I search Google for, 32 gigabytes of RAM, it's almost certainly going to lead me to Newegg. Regardless of what I click on first, I'm almost certainly going to end up at Newegg. If I want to shop around for a guitar and I go to Google for that or whatever search engine, I'm almost certainly going to end up at Musician's Friend. And if I want to buy clothing, I'm probably going to end up at Kohl's.com or something like that. I think that if there's a specific...
Are you saying that's because those are sponsored links?
I think it's just because they're the biggest and the most well-known, and whether they're sponsored or not,
well, big
they're
likes
the
big.
ones that everything else... Yes.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be at the top of the results and that everything else is going to sort of feed back to. I don't know the underpinnings of how it all really works, and I haven't tried this myself, but having been on the internet a very long time, there's a reason why when I think, I need to buy a guitar, musiciansfriend.com is the first thing that comes into my head. Or if I need to buy a new computer thing, it's newegg.com. I have these go-to places already in my head. I didn't know about newegg.com 15 years ago. Who taught it to me? Google did. And Google's teaching it to everyone. And I think it's like that regardless of whatever product or industry you're looking to buy a specific thing in, you're going to end up at a handful of different companies.
We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts here as we talk to Perry. He's in California listening to K-Talks. Go ahead, Perry.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do me a favor before you get into what you have to say. Just back off your phone by a few inches because you're a little over-modulated, as they call it in the business.
Okay.
Like a few more, if you don't mind.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
That's a little better.
All right.
Thank you.
We're being undermined. We're being had in many, many ways, okay? Both in the private sector and in the government sector, both. I mean, by that is Hollywood and the entertainment industry. There's different entities that are trying to influence the way America goes. This socialism will eventually destroy us if we continue on this path. But anyhow, what I wanted to say is there's many things that they're doing, but one of the things, this climate change hoax, the people that are pushing this, to me, they're mentally ill, because to think that we can create a hurricane or any that's been going, these weather patterns have been going on forever, and they're going to continue to go on forever. Human beings can't change the weather. But anyhow,
I used to agree with you on that point, but then I read a very well-written paper about the existence of cyanobacteria, which is back when the Earth was largely a primordial soup. It was this type of bacteria that consumed carbon dioxide and emitted oxygen. It would later evolve into plants and stuff like that, but it was just this bacteria. And prior to the existence of this bacteria, or the rise of this bacteria, planet Earth was unsuitable for animal life, completely unsuitable. However, this little tiny bacteria changed the atmosphere, changed the weather, changed the climate in such a way as to defeat the greenhouse gas problem that was going on back then and create an atmosphere that was suitable for human life. If a bacteria can do it, then humans certainly can.
I don't necessarily know I want to I agree with you on that 100%. But anyhow, all I want to say is this: our technology is moving so fast that I'm certain within a certain amount of years, probably within 20 years, I'm sure, that we're going to have energy sources far better than what we have now anyway, and
almost certainly
for less money. But here's the thing: in the meantime, since we've got 400 years of oil. Look at Saudi Arabia. They don't have any debt, but they've got trillions of dollars. We've got 32 trillion in that we've borrowed and we've printed up out of thin air, and we don't have any money. We're broke. And the thing is, if we could put a lot of millions of people to work drilling more oil and getting our like fossil fuels in our coal and our propane and so forth, and this way they'll have benefits too as well. And it'll put people to work.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you want to see you want to see deregulation in the area of energy, so more oil drilling can be done and that sort of thing. And I don't necessarily oppose that. I think that deregulating all business would be fine. Getting rid of the government would be wonderful, and allowing people to be free to make energy in whatever ways.
But I think if everything was like deregulated in that way, we'd end up finding that there is way smarter ways of doing energy than coal and oil.
And I think he was saying that as well. I just your phone's just too hard to handle, Perry. Thank you for the call tonight. I do appreciate it. Just too much distortion for my ears to take.
I certainly think Bonnie's correct. Yeah, sure. Deregulate the coal industry and all of that, but deregulate energy in general. And I think within a very short time frame, we would just drop coal and oil altogether because you'd have a nuclear power plant on every street.
Yeah. And that's certainly an area that's highly restricted by the federal government. I'm sure state governments as well. And without those regulations standing in the way, you'd have a lot more freedom to experiment and compete in the area of nuclear power, which we currently don't have at this time. Even Greta Thunberg apparently has changed her mind about nuclear power.
Wow.
Yeah, that's been in the news in the last week or so.
What country is she from? Switzerland?
I thought it was Germany, but I could be wrong about it. Maybe it's
not
Switzerland.
Germany, but I don't remember which one.
But it's because Europe's going to have a tough time heating their homes this winter.
Yeah.
Apparently, she got it through her head that nuclear might be a valid option for this.
It's good. That's good. So, it's good to be able to change your mind. And, you mentioned experimenting, and usually you wouldn't want to have someone in your neighborhood experimenting with nuclear power, right? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, and it would be. But what we have to remember is that the level of technical skill and scientific knowledge that it would require for your neighbor to experiment with nuclear energy means that the bar is so high that your neighbor would know exactly what they were doing, and they would have the money to do it safely if they were experimenting with splitting atoms in their basement.
Hopefully Sarah's not doing that right now. Sarah in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live.
Let's work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I just want to say that...
Do you know how to make fire, Sarah?
I guess I don't.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes,
okay.
I know how to make fire. All you need is pretty much a match, but...
There you go.
I think Herschel Walker, the Georgia Senate race, I think he has to be a liar.
Well, yeah, if he's a politician.
Yeah, they're all liars.
I mean, if here's how you figure out if they're lying, Sarah. If their lips are moving, they're a liar. If they're a politician, almost a guarantee.
Especially
except
if
Ron
he's
Paul,
a black person running for the Republican Party. I mean, what does that tell you? I mean,
he's a black person running for the Republican Party.
Are you suggesting, Sarah, that black people can only legitimately belong to the Democrats?
No, he's what you call an Uncle Tom. They've had these. Where they
Sarah, that's terrible. Sarah,
why is that terrible, Bonnie?
It's terrible because it's terrible to say that somebody has to have the opinion you want them to have because of their race, the color of their skin. I mean, people are individuals, Sarah.
Now, Uncle Tom, as I understand it, and I don't know the history or what particular media is from,
comes from a book.
It's a book.
It's the idea that this black person is... I don't know what the word would even be.
They sell out their own race.
I believe it's house N. The term?
The
Wasn't
idea
Uncle
is
Tom the house N?
I don't know about the book. I never read the book, to be honest. But the term is used to be somebody who's like a race traitor. Like, oh, I'm part of this race, but I'm joining with the other race against my race. And it's a terrible idea, a terrible thing to call anyone. And it's really, really collectivist and just ridiculous, honestly.
It was a title character from Harriet Beecher
Racist.
Stowe's 1852 novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. There's more coming up here in moments. Thank you for the call tonight. Sarah, you can join us in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are coming up. 603-283-6160.
If you've never been to a pawn shop, it's probably not what you're expecting. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Think yard sale, where you can be the buyer or the seller. The cash you need today may be something that's gathering dust right now in your garage or attic. Why wait till next Christmas to re-gift stuff that Santa brought last Christmas? Need power tools? Who cares if that second-hand electric drill is scratched up? It looks like you've been working. When you see someone with a Rolex watch, a real one, can you tell whether they bought it new? Are you ready to pop the question? That diamond took millions of years to create. Who cares if someone else owned it for 3 years? Get the stone remounted. She'll never know. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. Forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Moments remain here. Enough time for you if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. By the way, I want to say thank you to Roger Paxton, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program, and you can join him over at amps.freetalklive.com. Roger, by the way, is gold level, which means he's doing twice what we ask for. We only ask $5 a month. You get some cool perks for that, like access to the AMP-only podcast. That is a special RSS feed you can put into any old podcast client, and you get access to our full radio show archives without the recorded commercial content. So you can join up over at amps.freetalklive.com. You get some other perks as well. amps.freetalklive.com. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Aria in the studio. We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. We got Greg listening in Huntsville to WBHP in Alabama. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, I was just calling in about the product Tab. It was probably one of the original diet drinks, and my mom, of course, was a big fan of the product, and I'm 65, and if she was still alive, she'd be about 87. So it was a product of the 60s.
Yeah, it's and then I think Coca-Cola purchased it at some point, probably within the last few decades, and they kept manufacturing it, and then I think they announced earlier this year they were going to discontinue it, didn't they?
That's what I'm hearing you guys say. I don't keep up. I don't drink sodas anymore. So
good
I don't
choice.
Keep up with that. I'm a water drinker, so.
Yeah, it'll probably keep you alive a lot longer than drinking soda every day.
When I think of Tab Cola, I think about my aunt because she was the only person I can think of who ever drank it. So I could see it definitely being a weight
and
loss
you're from Mississippi
sort of
too,
diet
right?
cola. Yes.
Yeah, so it probably was a southern. Do you think it was like a southern thing?
It was definitely a weight loss thing.
We were in Southern California, so no, I think it was just a diet drink for women.
Yeah, I had never heard of it.
I shouldn't say just for women, but it was the drink my mother drank. I know that.
My mom was always doing diet things, Weight Watcher things, stuff like that, like just like all these weird new ways to lose weight that have been invented recently, but she never drank that, so I don't know.
My aunt was doing the whole Weight Watchers stuff thing as well. And I mean, to each their own, right? But me, I would rather just drink water instead of a diet soda.
I was wrong. This was not actually bought by Coca-Cola. I always figured it was its own brand. No, it was actually a Coca-Cola product, according to Wikipedia, that they introduced in 1963, and it was their first ever diet soda.
I'm going to look up the logo and see if it even looks familiar.
It's a really boring
I think it just is the word tab, right?
It's just a boring tab.
T-A-B.
Yep. And so they discontinued. I was wrong about that, too. I thought it was this year, and it looks like they just discontinued it at the end of 2020. So fairly
I've
recently.
never seen that logo.
Well, why would they keep it? They have Diet Coke and Coke Zero and all of these
Coke
others.
Zero is pretty good.
They decided not to keep it because there weren't as many people buying it anymore, right? Like, that's the reason they got rid of it.
It's terrible, though. Don't drink Coke Zero just because I said it's good. It has aspartame, which is basically poison.
Yeah, you really shouldn't drink soda at all. I mean, if you can avoid it. As Greg points out, switching to water will definitely lengthen your life. It'll keep you from getting fat.
Yep, when I wanted to lose weight in 2019, the first thing I did was just, I still ate like crap. I didn't know that much about nutrition at the time, and I've learned a lot since then. But the first thing I did was just cut out soda and start walking, and I lost like 20 pounds.
Makes sense. Greg, anything else you want to share?
I just appreciate your guys' show. It's a little bit different than most talk radio shows, but I don't always understand everything you guys are talking about, but I find the subjects to be interesting.
Well, hey, anytime you don't understand, you just pick up that phone and ask us a question, man. We're always happy to clarify.
But I do appreciate the way you guys handled that last call with the lady, because we don't need to judge people and put them in a category because of whatever.
That blew my mind. I've never heard someone just openly, publicly call a man an Uncle Tom for being a black Republican.
I've heard it a lot. Democrat, not to lump people into groups, but that is one of the calling cards of Democrats. Man, there are countless videos, especially during the Trump campaign. If you were a black person who supported Trump, the white people to your face would call you an Uncle Tom and a race traitor.
The Democrats.
Yeah, there are videos of this. It was absolutely despicable.
It was happening to that judge, the black judge, Clarence Thomas, as well.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. People should be treated as individuals. An individual can come to whatever ideological beliefs, whatever philosophical beliefs they come to or that they were brought up in without any regard to their skin color or any sort of blind, crazy allegiance to their race and their color of their skin. They should be, if they have allegiance at all, it should be to the truth.
Or to humanity or something like that, right?
Not to
the individual.
My skin color.
Greg, thanks for listening. Thanks for the call, man. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. And if you like the show, by the way, whether it's you, Greg, or anybody listening, give a call to your local radio station. Just tell them thank you for airing Free Talk Live. They never hear nice things from people at radio stations. They always hear complaints about the shows that people don't like. So whenever you say something nice about something like Free Talk Live, it'll stand out. So thanks for the call.
Okay, I'll do my best to make a call to them.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, sir. All right, the number here is 603-283-6160. That is the number here. There's a story in the news I wanted to get to, and I just don't know if 3 minutes or whatever is going to do it justice. AI is back in the news, and there's now a political party in Denmark that is being run by artificial intelligence,
That's
apparently.
Just insane.
Yeah, so do you want to... Should we try this, or should I talk about Shakira and her tax charges? What do you guys want to do?
I have no preference. I'm good with either way.
All right. Well, Bonnie feels strongly about AI, so that's why I wanted to do this tonight. The Synthetic Party is in Denmark now.
So they're just putting it right out in front.
Oh, yeah, they are. It hopes to soon have a parliament seat, and its head honcho, Leader Lars, is actually an AI chatbot, and all of its policies are AI-derived. This according to Futurism.com. Oscar Stanes, the creator of the party and an artist researcher at the nonprofit art and tech organization MindFuture, told Motherboard that Leader Lars is specifically trained on policies formed by post-1970 Danish fringe parties. And thus, he says, the party is designed to collectively represent the roughly 20% of present-day Danish voters whose parties remain unrepresented.
I just don't understand.
Parliament.
Why couldn't a human do this?
I don't know.
And how can it do it better than a human can?
Maybe humans disagree too much. And
it sounds like this bot is taking bad ideas from a lot of very small parties, and without regard to whether or not these ideas will work together, throwing them together and saying, yes, we have a communist party, we have a libertarian party, we have a drug party. So let's create this new policy of liberating the socialist druggies.
Quote, we're representing the data of all fringe parties, so it's all of the parties who are trying to get elected into parliament but don't have a seat, he told the website. So it's a person, he said further, who has formed a political vision of their own that they would like to realize, but they usually don't have the money or resources to do so, unquote. Leader Lars is in a way an inherent populist, and its policies, which according to Motherboard include universal basic income.
He's not anything. He's an AI with programs in him.
It's certainly not a populist because all of these political parties are minorities. They're such minorities that they can't even get a seat. To say they're populist is fundamentally untrue.
The Motherboard reported that they support universal basic income and jointly owned internet and IT sector in the government.
So they want their IT infrastructure to be obsolete. Got it.
Are entirely crowdsourced from existing human data and creation. That being said, Stonis doesn't necessarily believe that Leader Lars is perfectly democratic. Quote, artificial intelligence in the form of machine learning has already absorbed so much human input that we can say that in one way, everybody participates in these models through the data that they have submitted to the internet. He said further,
if that's the case, how come every AI I've ever talked to loves the government and can't be dissuaded from the idea that the government is a bad idea?
Well, I mean, that's probably the bulk of the opinions on the internet.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I would speculate that 90-something% of humans love government and think that the government's a good thing.
Well, then it's not going to represent these people who are outside of the political norms.
No, it will. These are people who want to be in the government so they can have more power. I mean, they don't.
No, the voters, like the people who are like, no, none of these big parties represent me. I'm looking for something else.
Well,
you mean like the anarchists, maybe?
Well, I don't know what they have over there.
Yeah, I don't either, but they have, what he's saying here is there's smaller parties that just can't get even a seat in parliament, even in a parliamentary system where if you get 1%, you get 1% of the seats, so they're even smaller than that, right? So because remember, it's very different in those systems than it is here. Here it's two parties and that's all you get. There, if there's 10 parties running and all 10 of them get more than 1%, then they're all in at least some of the seats, as I understand it, or they get enough percentage to get at least one seat, they'll get in. So the idea is they're just going to cobble all the extra parties together into this one party. It doesn't mean that anyone's necessarily going to vote for it. It doesn't mean that it will come up with sensible policy positions or anything like that. But it is interesting because it does show kind of the way of the future. Is that AI is going to be very, very popular, I think, over time. And some people won't even realize that what they're doing is voting for a party that is led by an artificial intelligence.
I think it's more popular now than it will be in a year or two. Right now, it's like blockchain. It's new, it's hip, it's exciting, so people are doing crazy, stupid things with it like this. I think it'll die out.
This isn't going to be, sustainable. This isn't going to be something people are going to be like, I want Lars whatever to rule my life. They're going to realize how dumb that is.
I think you're wrong about this one, Arya. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM